Okay, I think Yang just popped on. I'm pretty sure Aiden's gonna pop on momentarily. He just, like I said, he just sent everybody some stuff that came out late, so I'm assuming he should be here momentarily. Um, that way it gets into the official record. Hopefully, he comes soon. Okay, here's Aiden now. All right, so I will call the Transportation Commission meeting for June 11th, 2025 to order. Ariana, if you could please read the instructions.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click the raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. Aiden, if you could call a roll, please.
Sure. William Ochokwiks.
Present.
Thank you. Sean O'Brien, who I believe might be able to attend some, right?
He's here.
Oh,
he's here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Present.
I think, Sean, you have to pop off for another meeting for a bit in the.
Correct. Yeah, I'm driving between about 3 meetings this evening, so I'll be kind of in and out this evening.
Okay. Well, we're going to be a little close on quorum. Denise is running 15 minutes late, so once she comes, we should be better. So go ahead, Aiden. Sorry.
No worries. So Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford is excused tonight. Barbara Harrington McKinney. Don't see. Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
Harold Kleems.
Here.
Kaylee Jameson.
Here.
And Lynn Olson. And then Pepe Barros and Chris McCahill are excused tonight, and Denise Jess is running a bit late.
Yeah, Lynn was excused as well. She emailed Ariana. So at this point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. Just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people here. So we could only lose one and have our quorum. So, and hopefully, and Denise said she's running late and should be here in about 15 minutes. So that will give us a little bit more of a buffer. But Kaylee, you certainly, there are a number of people missing, so you are able to make motions and vote this evening. So
sounds good.
Yeah, great. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from the meeting of May 14th. Bill.
I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, there's a motion. Harold?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing no hands, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. I want to back up 1 second and just remind everybody that Chris McCahill is our vice chair, but he's traveling, so not here this evening. So I'm fingers crossed I don't get booted out of Zoom for some reason, but you may want to just wait and hopefully I'll be able to either get connected back on my laptop or on my iPad. Otherwise, somebody else would have to step in and move forward unless that kicks us out of quorum. So Otherwise, when Chris is here, he's usually ready to step in and share the meeting. So just wanted to remind everybody of that. And do we have anybody, or Ariana, do we have anybody registered under item 1 for public comments on items not on the agenda?
We do not.
Okay. Any disclosures or recusals this evening? Excuse me. Okay, seeing no hands. All right, we have 2 items proposed for the consent agenda this evening, items 2 and items 3. Do we have anybody registered to speak on items 2 or 3 this evening?
We do not. Nope.
Okay. Did anybody wish to have either of those items excluded from the consent agenda? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Phil?
I'll make a motion for approval for the consent agenda.
Okay, Robbie?
Items.
Second.
Thanks. There's a motion and a second. Since it's a consent agenda, I'm assuming no discussion. I'm also going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. So please raise your hand. Okay, great. So let's move on then to item 4, which is Metro Transit Route 75 stop and trip updates and additional bus stop changes. So who is going to take that? Sean, Mike? I don't see Mick.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are, Mick. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. All right, too many people on there. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just start out. Sean and Mike are going to do the presentation, but I'll just start out by saying that we gave you some updated materials. We added some more feedback that we received through the week. And there was also one stop on Packers and Manly that we included in the packet, but actually after doing some BRT review, we are not going to propose that to change any longer. And Mike will cover that in the presentation. So there's an extra slide in there covering that. Mike will talk about that later on. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. With that, we have a presentation if you're ready for it, Ann.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Mick. Go ahead. Mike, are you doing this then?
Sean's going to start.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I'll
Sean.
get into the service specifics, and Mike, as capital projects manager, will get more into the specifics for bus stops.
Okay.
I think are you able to share the?
Yes, I can. There you go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah. As we mentioned, these are the action items today. This is kind of an update for what we talked about last time. One thing new besides bus stops is Route 75. Basically, last meeting we had, we talked about reallocating some of the morning Route 75 trips because the new D extension needed another bus due to traffic and things in the peak times. So this we did some analysis.
I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing Sean. Is anybody else? He seems
Your
very
voice is
faint.
Yeah, your voice is a little soft, Sean.
I'll see what I can do.
I don't know if you have a headset or can just turn up the volume on your microphone.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Was that good?
It's a little better.
Yeah. I'll talk louder. I was in many plays and I can project. Okay. So this has an update too for Route 75 as well for the PM trips, and so it takes out one bus, and I'll show you those actual trips later. And it basically allows the D2 to be able to operate with added traffic congestion after we did some analysis. So following up with the D2 extension, we needed to kind of finalize some stops, and there were some people who mentioned that the map wasn't quite specific enough. And so we do have some slides that have the very specific stops with stop IDs that we're looking at for some of those changes that Mike can get into a little bit later. But then there's two new stops. And I just realized that I might have mentioned it last time too, but there's also two new stops on McKee and Manchester as well, which we'll show you in, oh yeah, so then also we had some feedback from the Nesbitt Road area, which we can get into in the next slide. So these are the stops that are proposed for deletion. It does have some that we kept there just to show later on, we do keep a lot of the stops here. It's not all of the stops on Fitzroy that will be removed, but these are the ones that we're looking at now. And I would say similar to our discussion last time, the main impact there, we do have about 9 boardings at that stop ID 4649 at Fitzroy and Nesbitt. This is next to the Point Luxury Apartments. And it's nine boardings a day as far as April goes, which was a high month for us. And then I did look into the winter because I read all the comments about some of the winter issues. In the winter, we have about 4 boardings in this area. So yeah, this is the map. If you can see that 4649 is right there where that little circle is in the roundabout where Nesbitt turns into Fitzroy. And so the main thing that we kind of needed to clarify is that little turn over there at Limestone and Hard Rock. So we used to have an old Route 59 that did this route, and we had a couple different ideas in this area, but we needed to work with ops, our operations team, to figure out what the best routing is, and this is what we came up with. So it still serves those nice 2 stops in front of Hy-Vee and the Fitzroy Target that have the shelters, but it goes up over the hill there at Hard Rock and Limestone. There's 2 new stops there on KPEC that are basically right at McKee. That's next to a Quick Trip there. That is a way to kind of balance some of the stops where we didn't have stops for quite some time. So yeah, this is a way for folks it's direct access to groceries. It does not go down to the luxury the Point apartments at the roundabout, but if you can see kind of how out of direction that is from this map. And yeah, it does have that new stop there on Manchester, as I mentioned before. There are a lot of apartments there, and that never had service before from the way that we did D2 in the redesign. So that is the Fitzroy area with the very specific stops. So as I mentioned earlier, Route 75, we needed to reallocate some of the afternoon trips. And if you go to the next slide, you can see which ones are changed. These were the morning ones that I talked about before. And most of those, besides the Fish Hatchery and Caddis stops, are all served by many more trips on Route D2. And so this is the morning one. And if you go to the next one, you can see with the new ones that are proposed today. This is something that we've been working with our partners in Verona on and Epic. And these were trips that we added in March, I want to say 2024. There were extra trips that we added. And in many cases, this was for people who live in the McKee area. So the D2 will be able to serve this very well, except for a handful of boardings over at Fish Hatchery and Caddis, which they still have all of the regular Route 75 trips that they can take from there as well. And so these are additional changes here that are kind of more procedural that I'll leave to Mike to explain.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So this one, there's a construction project and an expansion of the clinic on University Row, right where the word row is on the west side of the street, just south of University Avenue. That construction.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. So that construction would occupy our bus stop, and it would kind of create one little bit of curb space that the clinic wanted to use for pickup and drop-offs of their clinic. And, you know, it was kind of like it could be either pickup and drop-offs or it could be a bus stop. So regardless of that, our concern was if it was a bus stop, it would sort of by default be a pickup and drop-off spot anyway. This is the end of the line for us. We just did not see that working well. There's another thing going on here where, so we currently follow the pink line where we go up Whitney Way and then turn left on University and turn left at University Row to serve that current stop number 2600. That has continued to be a challenge for us operationally because we have to be in the left-hand lane of a dual left turn lane approach at University Avenue so that we can be in the left lane to turn left into University Row, if that makes sense. And we don't work well being in the left-hand lane of a left turn lane. We kind of get squeezed and it doesn't work well. So we thought we could solve that problem as well by simply reversing the loop and relocating the end of the line from 2600 to that new stop to 2398 southbound Whitney Way and changing the loop from counterclockwise to clockwise and kind of combining everything at 2398. So that's an existing stop for Route F. And so having Route F and routes 28 and 38 all just kind of be there, that's desirable. It solves operational problems. And so rather than doing this as a detour and then going back, we are proposing to just make it permanent. We're getting some bus stop upgrades at 2398 southbound on Whitney Way so that we can serve both the 2838 and Route F. So yeah, that's the story on that one. Back to you, Sean. Maybe it's still me here. I'll just keep going. So we have a number of other bus stop changes with this item that have kind of dovetailed off the original. And we tried to keep these to once a year so the commission can look at all of these as a unit and decide if they're good ideas or not. But what kind of happens is we have some construction projects and other things that are kind of pushed on us. Not pushed on us is the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying? That kind of happen as the summer goes on. This is one of them. The city of Verona has some improvements planned at some of these intersections, as well as we have the one version of Route D2 coming down here to Verona and not going into the Epic campus, but ending at the west side of Verona Avenue. So we're proposing a couple of changes. One is relocating the westbound stop 4310 from near side of Legion to far side of Legion. And then the other one is relocating the stop just east of 9 Mound to 9 Mound. So that's 4918 and 4519, moving those to a little bit west to a set of 3 stops at Verona Avenue 9 Mound that will be able to serve buses efficiently regardless of which direction they're coming. So westbound, if they're going west, they can serve the stop far side. If they're turning left onto 9 Mound to end there, they can serve the new stop southbound on 9 Mound and then wrap around by the high school and end at the new stop on West End Way. So that'll be a terminal for some Route D2 trips right next to a Quick Trip. So that's a convenient place for drivers to serve their end of line stop there. This one is the South Transfer Point. This is kind of a big deal. We've been working on this for quite a while to try to come up with a plan here. So there's a couple of things that are going to happen at different times. One is the Park Badger redevelopment, which is replacing the South Transfer Point and the lot to the west of it with new development. This is on the west side of Park, north of Badger, northwest corner of Park and Badger. So the South Transfer Point is closing for that project. That's been in development for a number of years. The south transfer point has to be closed, of course, when that demolition starts. And so we've been working on a way to replace the south transfer point with something. The other thing to consider here is north-south BRT. When north-south BRT comes through here, we'll need to have a plan for that as well. And we don't want to be moving transit service and people around too much in these timelines. So we're hoping to set up something that's semi-permanent for the closure of the south transfer point that can then dovetail into BRT. So our solution is to basically replace the activity that's happening at the south transfer point with a set of bus stops at Park and Hughes. Hughes is the intersection just to the north of Badger, 1 block to the north. Hughes and Park is signalized, so that's important for us. That will serve as the end of line for routes G, H, and O. And we'll also have Route B serving that, but it's not the end of the line for Route B. So Route B continues to go through there. So we'll have 2 new bus stops at Park and Hughes, so on Park Street for Route B. And then we'll have 2 bus stops on Hughes Place for routes G, H, and O. Route G will be stopped in the eastbound direction, waiting to leave and go east towards East Town Mall. Route H and O will be parked westbound on Hughes, waiting to travel west. Route H, of course, goes west towards the West Town Mall area, and then Route O goes up Fish Hatchery back downtown. So that's kind of that cluster of Park and Hughes replacing the south transfer point. That leads to a couple of other changes in the nearby area. We have a set of bus stops at Buick and Park, which are very close to Park and Hughes. So we're proposing the closure of those stops. That set of stops, particularly at Park and Buick, the southbound stop is pretty good, but the northbound stop is in pretty rough shape. That's a spot where we'd kind of like to have some nice facilities, shelter, and so forth, but we don't have any of those facilities and won't. So I think consolidating that to Park and Hughes will be beneficial for people getting on there. And then we're also proposing to add a new set of stops on Badger just east of Park Street in both directions. That would serve Route G going towards East Town Mall. And those may seem kind of close to Park and Hughes, but what we're trying to accomplish there is we have a number of destinations like Madison College in that area. And so we're trying to give people kind of a way to get on and off the bus without having to walk up there. It'd be a little bit infuriating to sit there and wait for the light and wait for another light to get off the bus just to walk back to where you were. It's kind of the series of turns and traffic signals there that say it's kind of convenient to just have a set of stops there, even though they're closer than we usually try to have them. This dovetails into a couple other changes to the west, and this is kind of tangentially related, but we're also trying to make some improvements for Route B to keep Route B on time. Route B has been struggling with some on-time performance. We've been getting a number of complaints from our operators as well as from passengers who have to, kind of stop, and then the bus goes around the corner and stops again. So we have a number of stops at Badger and Fish Hatchery in that area. Going westbound, we have 792 at Fiedler, and then we turn left and hit 0816 southbound Fish Hatch and Badger, and then the eastbound we hit Badger and Fish Hatchery, and then Badger and Fiedler again right away. So the ultimate plan for BRT is to have a BRT station kind of at Catalpa, which is just east of Fish Hatchery Road, and then a set of local stops right there as well for Route H and Route O. So we're trying to kind of implement that vision here with this plan by simply eliminating the stops at Badger and Fiedler, 121, and Fish Hatch and Badger, 816 going southbound. One complication to that fact is that Route 75 serves the stops at Fish Hatch and Badger. And so we're proposing to not exactly close the stop southbound Fish Hatch and Badger, but instead move it north to the near side so that Route 75 can serve it, but Route B doesn't. We could just have Route B just skip it, but we thought that would be confusing to have a stop that Route B skips when it really doesn't skip any other stops in this area. So we're proposing moving that one back to near side so it's clear that only Route 75 serves it. We did think it was important to have not only new accessible bus stops at the quote unquote new South Transfer Point area, Park and Hughes, but we also wanted to have some better facilities because this is an area where a lot of people are catching the bus. Obviously, a lot of activity in that area as people are transferring between routes and things like that. The right of way in Park Street is quite constrained, so as it is on Hughes. So we did struggle, but we did come up with something. A southbound park at Hughes has wide terrace from recent developments. We'll have shelter there. A northbound park at Hughes, we attempted to get shelter behind the sidewalk, but that didn't work out. We have a plan to kind of squeeze a shelter in at that location. So we have kind of a new plan that we're going to try out with a new shelter to put a shelter on the existing sidewalk. It involves kind of bumping out the curb just a little bit to create just enough space for a shelter and space for the through sidewalk. Westbound on Hughes for the H and O, again, we have some wide sidewalk there, so we'll have a shelter there. Eastbound on Hughes, we were not able to secure space for a shelter, but we do have a bench. So we'll be putting in a bench eastbound. So of the 4 stops, we should have 3 shelters and a bench. And if it's raining for the eastbound stop, people probably go across the street and wait in the shelter there. But just this was kind of a big one. We're kind of working on trying to work on closing the South Transfer Point without making it worse or seeing it having people see it as just a loss of a nice facility. So I think we will be able to kind of replace that with kind of in-kind facilities. And since some of these routes don't have to loop around the South Transfer Point, we should be able to save some time and kind of keep the bus on time a little more. We are planning a reroute of Route H and O to use Hughes and Cypress, and that is necessary so that they can go up there and serve that stop on Hughes. But Route B will just go up and down on Park and then east and west on Badger.
Excuse me a moment, Mike. Ariana, could you move Denise from the attendees to the panelists, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, and so we just have some numbers here for you. These are some of the stops that are planned to close. Now, a lot of what's happening here is not exactly closures per se. A lot of times when we close stops, we're just closing the stop. But in this case, as you saw on the previous page, we're really just kind of rearranging stops in the area. So some people will be closer to the new stops and some people will be farther away. But you can kind of see what's going on. There's a lot of boardings. This is a very active area, 918 boardings at the South Transfer Point. A lot of that is transfers between routes B, G, H, and O, and also people going to the destinations in that area and just walking farther to get there because that's where all the routes come together. I talked about that last one, northbound Park and Buick, number 475. That's the one that I mentioned. The stop is, we have 120 boardings a day there, and it's kind of a sad stop. So we're hoping to get something better for people boarding the bus there. And so that will be part of that consolidation with the South Transfer Point into the new set of stops at Park and Hughes. So if all this comes together, they'll have a better stop with better boarding area and shelter and other shelter amenity. So this is Packers and Manly. As I mentioned, we had we've been dealing with some on-time performance problems with Route B and requests from our operations department to look at bus stops that we could potentially close to get kind of a little bit more in the realm of where North-South BRT is going to be. And, generally we said, well, we're going to wait till some of these other things come online. this one, Packers and Manly, seemed to be kind of an easy closure, so we thought we'd throw it in there. It's part of it would be consistent with the BRT program as it was. Since then, we've been looking at North-South BRT at the preliminary design, which I talked about a few meetings ago. We are currently proposing a BRT station at Packers and Elka. We continue to struggle with how that's actually going to work operationally. We have a plan. I'd say we kind of continue to go back and forth on whether the plan is really the best plan. So we've had some meetings with our operations. We've done some field research, and we're just not confident at this point that the BRT station is going to end up exactly where we thought it would be. So our suggestion here is to just keep the stop at Packers and Manly rather than close it as we previously recommended, just to kind of keep our options open. We don't want to close it and then if potentially reopen it if the BRT station were to end up there. We just want to kind of figure that out a little bit more before we figure out what the plan really is in this area. So again, this one was recommended for closure, but we are now reversing that recommendation that we keep this one open for now. Okay, so equity concerns. Sean, do you mind if I just take the self-transfer point because that one's mine? Okay. And then I'll send it back to Sean for the D2. So this is something we look at just to be a little bit purposeful and looking at potential equity impacts of any service change or change that we do. So I'll take the South Transfer Point one because I was kind of on top of that one. So as I mentioned, some riders will need to walk farther. Some will be closer. Particularly the consolidation of the South Transfer Point in Buick to one station at Hughes. That's kind of like it's so close. It's really just on the other end of the block. So that we think will have pretty minimal impacts for people having to walk farther. On the other hand, we think that for one thing, the closure of the South Transfer Point has already been committed to, but many people will actually have a better experience. They'll have a better amenities. More people will have access to a shelter, particularly people currently boarding at Buick Street. So we see that as neutral to even positive, depending on who it is. And I'll send it back to Sean for the D2.
Yeah. For the equity concerns, we did mention that that stop there on the Fitzrona and the roundabout where the Point Apartments are. It is a 10-minute walk for about 9 average people or so in April at least, and about 4 in the winter. We did look at paratransit impacts for leaving Nesbitt Road. Basically, a paratransit is a 3/4 mile from every stop as the crow flies. So we did lose some eligibility on the other side of Verona Road in a kind of a newer Fitchburg neighborhood. I did check with our paratransit folks and found that there's no one signed up there, so there's no impacts. And that is definitely, I think, in my opinion, the paratransit expansion in Verona, I think, is going to be a wonderful thing. And so there's that kind of underlying there too. Mike mentioned the South Transfer Point, but I could say we're trying the best we can to come up with the best, the easiest and best way to make that happen for folks as well. With that said, open for questions.
Thanks. We're going to go to public comments before we have questions and comments from commissioners and elders. So Aiden, I understand we have some folks registered to speak on this item.
We do. Our first registrant was Graham Mason of Fitzrona Road Apartment, Fitchburg, Wisconsin, opposes and wishes to speak.
Here, I don't see anyone with that name in attendance.
Was Graham it was?
Yes, Grame.
I don't see anybody with that name.
Okay.
Maybe you could watch, Ariana, and see if somebody
Yeah.
pops in. Thanks.
So next we have Heidi Wenner of Fitchburg, opposes and wishes to speak.
So I am one of the 9, but that's not why I'm speaking. Each time Sean and Mike say, oh, there's only 9 people, what they're not saying is if you look at the map of people getting to Epic, one area that doesn't have service directly to Epic is this specific stop. It's only been the D2, gets me downtown, which is great. But if we're expanding the D2 to go out to Verona, you're taking away a stop that my husband, who doesn't drive, and I have there's multiple Epic people in this neighborhood, that you are taking away a stop. Whereas if you just kept the stop and had them go around the roundabout, you'd get more than 9 people. Because right now, my husband doesn't take the D2. I have to drive him to work because he can't get there. So my point is of keeping the stop is if the whole point is to get the D2 to Verona, eliminating a stop where you have a whole apartment in a neighborhood that has not only my husband, but a bunch of Epic kids, to me seems counterproductive. I mean, if it was just one of us 9, I could get it. But why, if you look at the whole map, we are one of the only areas that doesn't have the 75 in our neighborhood or the D2, which seems silly to me. And to walk up that hill in the cold is going to take more than 10 minutes. And so it doesn't pay for him in the cold. I might as well give him a ride to work. So that's why I would just like it to be kept so that Epic people could get to Verona, because any less traffic, as someone who goes there every morning, would just be nice.
Okay, is that all you have then, Heidi?
Yes. Oh, and by the way, the reason Graham is still at work and wasn't able to get off in time for this, so I know that he is one of them that won't be able to speak because he wasn't able to get off early enough to be able to do this meeting. But he had it's the same reason of mine, because he actually works at Epic.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commission members have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing no hands. Thanks very much, Heidi. Who else do we have?
So next we have Dave Martin of Fitchburg, opposes and wishes to speak.
We have David there, right, Ariana?
Yep, David should be able to speak.
Hello.
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, terrific. I have a great amount of respect and appreciation for the hard work that you guys in transportation are going through, and you're certainly putting a lot of thought and consideration into this, and we appreciate that. I speak to you today about the elimination of that one stop. Actually, it's more than one stop going down Fitzrona, but just to address a couple of points. One, the numbers are going up because more people are riding the bus. We have people that have moved into this community, which is 82 strong, which makes us one of the largest communities on the route. Moved in specifically because of the bus and because the service will take them to work, whether that's downtown or Epic. So it's a matter of the number growing and the number growing naturally. So it's, as you guys know, these numbers are dynamic. They change. Yeah, the numbers for last winter, well, that was last winter. What we're talking about now is next winter and the winters after that and the summers after that. So the numbers will continue to go up. The issue of the walk itself. Well, according to, I know you guys use the Google Walk app. Well, we used it too, and it's 1,000 steps, that 10 minutes. 1,000 steps is a lot of steps to take. Comparatively, from the south extension that you were going, and you gave your step numbers for that, those steps were like 200 steps or 300 steps that you showed in your graphic. That's a whole different story. If we were in that kind of neighborhood, we would certainly go along with the walk. When it's 1,000 steps, that's a different story, especially in the winter with an incline. That incline and getting to that stop, that's kind of a tough thing for folks that are walking to do. For the bus to come down and use the roundabout with the limestone solution is almost de minimis. The amount of time that it would take to come down, use that stop, give access to the community here, and then use the roundabout to pursue the limestone solution would, again, be de minimis in terms of time. It's a big difference between the bus going 1,000 steps and someone walking going 1,000 steps. So what we're saying is we would like the stop to stay. We see every reason for the stop to grow, being the largest community on the D2 route in that neighborhood area. And by the way, in the limestone area, there are no apartments there. As someone said earlier, there were some apartments being served. There are no apartments. There are 2 hotels, but no apartments. So we respectfully ask that our stop not be eliminated for the good of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Questions from anybody on the commission for the registrant? Okay, thanks very much. Who else do we have, Aiden?
Next, we have Iris Hitting of Andy's Drive, Madison, poses and wishes to speak.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
We can, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Of course, as David said, also thank you for organizing this and making this all possible. And so, yeah, talking about indeed, like I am, of course, opposing this because I am also in favor to keep those 2 bus stops because I live on Andes, which is already an 8-minute walk from the Fitzroy the Fitzroy Nesbitt bus stop because I live in that weird area where town of Verona ends and Fitchburg begins. So it's already for me an 8-minute walk and I already have to deal with the hill. So if those stops will be eliminated, I will have like an 18, well, actually more like a 20-minute walk for myself. So I totally agree with David to make the loop around the roundabout and then indeed go into limestone because that will make perfect sense. So people do not have to walk indeed like all those steps, do not have to go uphill or downhill, especially in winter. And I used to sometimes walk like that road in like the Fitzroy road in winter, and sadly 50% of the time it's not plowed correctly, so it's going to be very slippery too in winter. And of course you're going or down uphill. And yeah, being like literally on a slippery sidewalk for 10 minutes it's not fun. So yeah, I just like David, I and Heidi, I want these stops to stay. So it will be an 8-minute walk for me and not like 18. So that's what I have to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for the registrant? Okay, thanks. Do we have any other registrants for this item, Aiden?
Yes. Next, we have Jason Slaybaugh of Fitchburg, opposes and wishes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I am opposed to the removal of the stops because I live just shy of Corey Vista Drive, and right now I have to walk to those stops. If you eliminate those stops, it's almost a mile uphill. And next year they're going to be doing construction on Fitzroy Road, so that's even going to be worse because walking there. But my big thing is you're moving to Capec Road, which gives you 2 stops by a gas station. So the the main reason why you would need to stop on a bus is to get gas, which doesn't make sense. It's an uncontrolled intersection. And then you turn onto Hadcock Road, which is also an uncontrolled intersection. So there's just 3 spots right there that are going to slow down the bus even further. Limestone Road or Limestone Lane is a very steep road that is not plowed very often in wintertime. So it's another kind of a bottleneck to slow you down. I mean, if that's what it is, but I am in favor of just keeping the stops to the roundabout. And then you also have on Fitrona a 300 apartment or 300 something apartments that are being built right now. So there's more and more places that are, growing. And if you keep changing your bus stops, people aren't going to be able to plan to then be like, hey, I can move here and it's on the bus stop, because the Elan could say it, but now they're, much further away. So yeah, I'm opposed to it.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Harold?
Yeah, thanks for speaking tonight. You mentioned that there are 300 apartments being built. I think you said on Fitrona.
Yes.
Where about, do you know?
Fitrona and Capec.
Okay. Thank you.
There's like that entire subdivision by the or like by the quarry there or the concrete plant.
Mm-hmm.
That's all expected to be redeveloped. So there's a McDonald's going in there next year, a bank, some multi-use retail places, and yeah, the 400 apartments or 300 some apartments are going right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks very much. Do we have anybody else registered?
Our last one was Raksha Vijendra, Fitrona Road opposes, but I don't believe I see them in the registrant list.
Yeah, I don't either. I see somebody named District 20, Alder Harrington McKinney. Is that you? If that's you, could you raise your hand? Could you please move Alder Harrington McKinney into the panelists? Ariana?
Yep, can do.
Thank you. Okay, so that's it in terms of registrants for this topic who are here. Is that correct, Aiden?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much. And thanks to everybody for coming and sharing your thoughts with us this evening. So comments or questions for staff? Or discussion points? Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, a number of things. So yeah, let's maybe start with this area. I think we maybe briefly talked about this in the previous meeting when we talked about the rerouting, but can you comment on this idea of like going down Limestone, turning right onto Nesbit, and then going up Fitrona, like how much that would add to the time or what the operational challenges with that would be?
Yeah, kind of dovetailing into what those Route 75 cuts were kind of born from peak travel time concerns we have with Route D2. And this map is a pretty good example kind of the scale that we'd have to do to go down there. So yeah, we worked through this with our operations staff, and this is, was an old existing routing. And And yeah, I just, after looking at the analysis, and it was certainly one of our alternatives, we just found it's too much out of direction travel. And so when we have, concerns about, the D2 is a very long route. It has to go all the way to the airport now from the Epic.
Can you speak up a little bit, Sean, please?
Sure. Yeah, so D2, it's a very long route, and it has lots of different concerns we have about travel times. And this was the one that we worked with our operations staff. Then they looked at all those turns. I know some of those are unsignaled, but they're turns that we've made in the past, and operations okayed and found out that this was the fastest route that we could take. And we really wanted to serve those 4,200 and 4,201 stops there. So this serves those stops, nice shelters, and also gets back on track rather quickly, because people are going to be coming from very far away. And so it was the travel time concern.
Okay, thank you. Then the question about the stop location for the KPEC stop, I think one of the commenters pointed that out. I mean, I also looked at it it's the quarry on the one side, the gas station on the other side, 10 to 11 lanes of traffic to cross if you want to get to the north side of McKee. One thing that occurred to me, would it make sense to have a stop in Hard Rock, like after you turn off of McKee? Because at least there you have there's the Aldi, there's the Buffalo Wild Wings, and a bunch of other commercial things. And you could argue that's pretty close to the Hy-Vee and Target stops, but there's the gradient and there's no straight way. Well, you can walk along McKee, I suppose, so it's not terribly far. But yeah, the KPEC stop doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And then the other piece that one of the commenters pointed out, that development, I just looked it up, the Jamestown Quarry Development Plan, and that maybe gets not so much at the KPEC stop, but at the elimination of that 4984 and 4541. If we are going to see a lot of development along Fitrona there, that might be another consideration with stop placement.
Yeah, let me take that one. So let me start on the upper right corner of this map. So we currently have two stops right next to each other, the KPEC and Fitrona stops, and then 4997 and 4836. I think that's King James, if I remember. Those stops are much closer together than our stop spacing standards suggest. And so, we looked at these a little bit ago to see if we should delete one of them. And we decided to wait and tackle it with this project, do it all at once as one move, which I think makes sense. So the stops to the right, King James is kind of the walking path to the north towards a neighborhood and number of people living up in that area. So we elected to recommend keeping those stops and eliminating KPEC and Fitrona, which are just a couple hundred feet to the west. With the routing on Limestone and Hard Rock, we then end up with kind of a long throw between the Hy-Vee stops, 4200 and 4201, and 4997 and 4836, the King James stops. And so we thought we could probably have a stop somewhere halfway between those stops rather than, just right next to the King James stops. We suggested having them at KPEC on the north side of McKee. The reason for that is the predominant use of those stops would be people going east on McKee on the other side of Verona Road. There's a movie theater over there. There's a couple things. There's not a ton of transit supportive land uses, but there are some employment centers. There is some residential. There are people that, would probably, walk under Verona Road to get the D2 to go downtown. And so the north side of McKee on KPEC is a half a block closer. Neither of those intersections are signalized. So, we thought that the north side being a little bit closer would kind of be the desire path there. That being said, if we thought that relocating them, to the south side on Hard Rock, that could be done as well. The other thing about CAPEC on the north side is there is a quick trip right there, and so for our operators, if that were a time point or if it were an emergency or something or some future end of line, that's sort of convenient that they could potentially use the bathroom facilities there. So that factored in, but it wasn't kind of the deciding factor. I will talk about those turns, because we did a fair amount of research on that. The main concern there was the hill on Hard Rock, that Hard Rock and Limestone. That's a bit of a steep hill going in the southbound to westbound direction. So we did look at that hill, but we don't really have any concerns. We did operate there in the past, and we have hills that are about as steep in other parts of Madison. So we are comfortable with that hill. And the left turns westbound to Hard Rock and then eastbound to CAPEC, those are not of a concern to us either, because we're making the left turn off of the major street. So if you think about it, that's kind of equivalent to making a left turn at a signalized intersection without a protected green arrow. You just have to wait for a gap in oncoming traffic, and then you go. The signals at Verona Road and Fitzroy and McKee have cycles and different phases that will provide us gaps that we can make that left turn, and that will save us a couple minutes over the alternative route, which I think would be going down Fitzroy, wrapping around the roundabout and coming back up north. So that operationally should work pretty well. So I tackled a couple there in one, but any follow-up or questions on that, just to let me know.
Yeah, no, thanks. Did you talk to Fitchburg at all? Since this is all Fitchburg, right? Like the area, like city of Fitchburg.
Yes, we've been working with the city of Fitchburg.
Okay, so I mean, I'm sure they talked about the development stuff, and you could talk about like sidewalk clearance along Fitzroy and all that stuff. So maybe there might be some follow-up. I guess looking at that map again, I mean, the only advantage that you have from making the little jiggle on Hard Rock, Limestone, Fitzroy is that you can serve that 4200 and 4201 stop, which is really quite close to the 4510. Like, how much would it have saved to just go straight down on McKee?
We didn't even really look into that because we felt this grocery store was so important.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, I'll stop for you, and then maybe once we talk about the Park Street ones, I have some additional comments. So thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Okovich.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask about going through the roundabout, like some of the registrants asked. And apologies if we talked about this at a previous meeting, but did you look at all at going down Fitzroy and just changing direction through the roundabout and then going back up to McKee?
Yeah, that was one of the options that we looked at, and just have to do.
I'm sorry, Sean. You're going to have to either get closer to the mic or speak up.
Okay, so yeah, that is something that we looked into, but yeah, this is this was the consensus we've had with our internal teams and the analysis that we did.
And I'll just add to Sean's response there. So yeah, the alternative would be to, as some of the commenters have suggested, would be to go down to the Fitzroy and Nesbitt roundabout, just make a 180-degree U-turn, come back up, and go straight up to McKee and turn right. So that would add a couple minutes to each trip, and that operationally would work. We are recommending this route for a number of reasons, mainly the directness and the travel time savings for the other riders on the bus. we are cognizant of the discussion we had with Transit Network Redesign a couple of years ago. And so, that kind of discussion is, I don't know if it still applies, but one of the major goals of Transit Network Redesign was to kind of keep the routes straight, fast, and frequent. And so that's what the commission and city council asked us to do. And so that's what we tried to kind of achieve. And so we're hoping with this deviation from McKee, that's not a large deviation from McKee, that we're still kind of trying to uphold that discussion and that directive of the commission. But we can always shift if we're not interpreting that correctly, or if that discussion and that direction has changed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at it and I'm just wondering how many people, I guess I'm curious how many more people are served by this alternative than by going down Fitrona and doing a U-turn. And I mean, I think you could probably consolidate all 4 of those stops into just one stop if you did that. And just put it on the north side of Fitrona Road. And maybe where, what is that, 4828 is. Although, yeah, I guess that's sort of my thought, is I'd just be curious how many more people are served by this.
Who's going to take that one?
Going down and just doing the loop. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess what is like the population that would be served through the loop versus going to, I guess what is the population that would be served through the loop?
So to compare the two, the suggestion about the roundabout versus what your staff is proposing?
Yep.
Is that the question?
I guess so. It's more for how many people that aren't going to the area that have to wait through going down through the loop. So like I said, we do have, if you go to the boardings slide, I don't know, Mickey, if you can go to that one, that the 4649, that's the one that has the 9 boardings on it in April. There it is. So it's a little bit less of we're not trying to push coverage to those KPEX stops. Those just kind of are the route, the most direct route. I would probably say the bigger question is is it worth going down to the roundabout there for a lot of out of direction travel for folks? And so one of the reasons our original option was staying on Nesbitt Road and not even going to Maple Grove. So Maple Grove, just for reference, the way that the D2 is set up right now, that has about 89 passengers a day. So the first thought then was to get it back onto McKee so we can serve Maple Grove. And then the last meeting, we did have a lot of folks that were here to support the D2 extension. So the kind of the folks that would be affected by this they kind of came the last round, the folks that were going all the way that weren't coming through here. So I think that's kind of the question. It's not as, we're trying to like push new coverage to KPEX. That's just the faster route, the faster through route for the folks that got on at other locations. I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Is that all you had then, Alder?
Yep, that was all.
We're seeing something strange on the screen right now. So I don't know who's sharing, but we're not seeing that. Thank you. Is that all you had, Alder? Okay. Robbie, you're next. Go ahead.
Thanks. This is just really because I don't know this area really well. I mean, I know it, I can kind of picture it, but there's been so much sort of with the Verona Road and McKee changing, expanding and things. It looks very different than when I used to bike through there. And all right, sorry, my computer's giving me some kind of weird signals. What I'm trying to figure out is future development in this area and whether we're going to be sorry that we took the bus off of Fitch-Rona, because although you say that all those twists and turns are the fastest route, it just seems like that's very indirect. And it seems that there is quite a bit of development going on Fitch-Rona north of McKee, and then I don't know what the plans are for Fitch-Rona south of McKee. But there certainly has been some development in the last few years. The speakers obviously came from a building that is not that old. And I know that quarry area north of McKee is also being redeveloped. I don't know if the whole area is or only just a small part, but somebody did mention there's a building going in there. So I guess I'm having a hard time balancing the timing for the D with the need that we might need to serve future developments that are on Fitch-Rona or closer to Fitch-Rona. And I guess I'll just throw it out there that we're putting a lot on the D. I mean, Mike mentioned that this is a very long route and it goes all the way to the airport. It goes all the way down to Epic. That is a very long route. And it just seems that we're asking it to do a lot. And I guess it's too bad we don't have a regional transit system, because then, Fitchburg would be able to make choices on their own transit service and decide where new developments, what they needed to be served. But I am struggling. I'm struggling with moving it off of Fitch-Rona, both north and south of McKee. Do we know what the plans are? What Fitchburg's plans are for that whole area that is no longer going to have transit service?
I know that there's some vacant lots out down there by the bowling alley and the roundabout that could be developed. The area south of there in Quarry Vista is being developed as well. And I have to throw it out there. I wish we could have a bus on every street. I really do think that there is a future for this. I think there is getting to be a critical mass of density that's not quite there yet to the south, especially Lacey Road area. Fitchburg is in our talks with them, they're excited about expansion. They need to find the budget for it. But I see a situation where we come back here someday, like you said, the D2 is doing a lot. Maybe there's a different route that Fitchburg works with and comes through here that's also timed up with other developments and things. But staff just felt that right now this is our suggestion.
Okay. I mean, the point about the network redesign trying to be more direct, it just looks like the proposed route is less direct. And so, I'm trying to figure out why that's better. I mean, going all the way down Fitch-Rona, all the way from where the pink, all the way north of McKee and then down to the roundabout and back, I just feel like that would take the same amount of time as all those turns on Capac and Hard Rock and Limestone, and you would still hit the 4510 and 4200 and 4201, which are close to Target and Hy-Vee, a little farther away from Aldi, but it does hit the shopping center. So I don't know. I'm just struggling with this, and the potential ridership we might gain from that area down to Epic. I guess that's what I'm looking at. So I don't know what the answer is, but I was just trying to figure out if we knew what the redevelopment plans were for that whole area.
And also, I think somebody commented earlier about how much time it would take to go down and about the roundabout. Mike, was it you who commented on that earlier?
Yeah, we didn't drive it and time it, which sometimes we do. We did look at Google Maps driving directions, which is, you know, kind of a shortcut and kind of a cheat, but it's not entirely wrong. It's an extra minute by Google Maps travel time. So with the bus and everything, it's probably we usually double that or add 50% or something. So it's probably about 2 extra minutes, which, you know, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's if you have to go through there every day, it gets pretty old. Not to speak against that, but just to kind of put that in a little bit of perspective.
So that's 1 or 2 minutes over the proposed windy route.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Probably 2 minutes. I'd estimate 2 minutes, 2 additional minutes.
Okay. Thanks.
But does anybody have any other comments with regard to Robbie's question about future development? Sean, I think you mentioned a couple of things earlier. Anything other than that?
No, I just know that they have some property that's zoned for future apartments in that area. But yeah, like I said, you know, the D2's doing a lot. Fitchburg's growing. They're interested in new service. You know, I could see a situation where something comes up kind of from the Lacey, Corey Vista area back here someday. And especially once most more of those apartment get developed, I really think they'll have critical mass for something like that as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, we've seen the plans, and I was trying to find them, and I'm not great at multitasking, so I couldn't find it in the last minute or so. But we have seen them. From my recollection, I think they're basically planning on developing basically everything north and west of that Fitch-Rona curved street. So we did talk with them, and the kind of the plan would be that the stops for that area would be the stops at Fitch-Rona and McKee. So you'd have to come walk down there and get those stops, get on at those stops. We would not propose stops west of Fitch-Rona and Capec. If we were to stay on Fitch-Rona, the logical place for stops would be somewhere west of 4541 and 4984, kind of right on the curve by the R at Fitch-Rona. We wouldn't propose that because there are no streets and there wouldn't be intersections at that location. We typically don't do that. So again, we looked at the stops around Capec and King James. And they're so close together. They're essentially one stop as they are. One thing we could do to improve it kind of equalize the service in that area between King James to the north and Fitch-Rona to the west would be to kind of split the difference and have 4541 eastbound and 4836 westbound. We typically don't like to do that because then it's a different street name in each direction. But that's one thing that we could do. I don't think I'd recommend that, but that's a compromise that we've kind of entertained in the past. But basically, the stops for most of that development would be the stops at McKee and Fitch-Rona, which is pretty typical for people to be within a block or two of transit service. That's pretty typical.
Does that help, Robbie?
Yeah. Someone sent me the plan for the quarry development, so I can see that there's a bunch of residential going in there and maybe some commercial. So I don't have any more questions.
All right, thanks, Robbie. Denise, you're next. Denise, before you start, could I just say one of the registrants has their hand up, and Registrants have already had their opportunity to speak, so we won't be going back for additional conversation with the registrants. Thank you. Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Thanks, Mike and Sean. This is a really tough situation. So I appreciate Metro looking at lots of options. I really heard the residents speaking about this, and a couple things that stand out for me in their comments are that we have non-drivers in that area, and really our bus system, non-drivers are a vulnerable population. So when I look at this from an equity lens, if we're disenfranchising non-drivers, that's really concerning to me. Because Heidi can take her husband, but what are the days that she can't or isn't available, or how does that limit her husband's quality of life? So that I need to speak to. I also, looking at the map and seeing how the bus kind of squirrels around, I have wonderings about the snow removal in that area, not only on the street level, but on the residential side. I think people that are on major thoroughfares tend to do a better job with snow removal. Maybe that's an over generalization, but what is the walking condition in the winter for folks if they have to do the squirrel around? And then 1,000 steps is worth noting. I think some folks that might make them either not be able to make that walk, especially if they're older adults or people with any kind of mobility issues. And I know sometimes in these conversations, then it's like, well, they're paratransit eligible. But the less people we push to paratransit, the better. Paratransit's a subpar service, costs more, and you lose a lot of autonomy using it. So the more that our routes are really available for folks who could use a fixed route, the better. I don't have a good solution. I'm kind of liking the staying on Verona Road and making that turnaround that's been discussed. I don't know what that really means for what numbers, how many more people would be ride eligible. But I am, from an equity standpoint, I'm concerned about disenfranchisement. I also, this is hypothetical yet, but I wonder about how much of that new housing is going to be workforce focused. Apartments often are, and so that's going to be a population that is less likely to have car ownership or might even be car deficient. So I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable with where we're at in this situation. And then I was having some connectivity issues, so I do have a clarification question. One of the last things I think, maybe Mike, you said it, that with some of the changes there would be that would change the paratransit eligibility area, and that you noted that currently, and I appreciate you checking that no one is currently signed up for paratransit, but that's today. Disability is a moment away for anybody. So if we are decreasing the paratransit availability service area, that's concerning for me too. So I wish I had, instead of just kind of like being the grumpy Gus with these are my concerns, I wish I had a better solution. I don't, but I am really concerned about this from an equity standpoint. So thanks.
Thanks, Denise. Staff have any comments in response?
No. Yeah, I mean, we did look at the paratransit coverage area there. Yeah, I mean, my former statement of that, I do think there's a future route here. I'm definitely hearing your concerns, and we can see what we can do. Yeah, we did look at the paratransit. That's more for the area of the south. And there was one registrant who walks from there now. But that's a really difficult walking environment. I kind of feel like there's a future route that's kind of that I think might be a better supplement to this. But that being said, we're listening to everything.
I just like to say that Sean gets the credit for doing the research on the paratransit, not myself. Couldn't live with that.
Okay, is that all you had then, Denise? Okay, I'm assuming so. Bill, you're next. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I don't want to repeat anything that's already been said, but I'm very hesitant to. I don't think we need to make this change. That's my bottom line. I think we perhaps will be sorry that we take the bus off of the Fitzroy on the north and also to the south. And I think, you know, it may seem strange to have a bus go down and make a U-turn and go back up. But I think in this particular case, I think that might be a better solution than adding CAPEC and Hard Rock and so forth. I think there's enough ridership down there, and there's even ridership south of Verona Road, down there in Quarry Vista and so forth. The people that drive up there, the D2 is my old bus route, and I know people that rode that are riding that D2, and I think that. And you spoke about the D2 going out to the airport. I don't know how many people use the entire route. In other words, I think a lot of people use the D2 to get downtown and then they go home, both east and west. So I'm not as concerned about. Yeah, I think that the airport is a good. You know, if somebody wants to take the bus on from the west side, they can get there, and that's good. But anyway, I think that topography down there in Fitzroy is tough, and I think we'll lose ridership. I cannot expect people to walk up that to get up to from there's apartments and so forth to get up there. So I'm hesitant to. I won't be be in favor of this particular change, taking the bus off of Fitzroy, both north and south. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any comments from Mike or Sean about that?
Just a clarifying question on the north part of Fitzroy where we're on the curve. If we were to, so if we were to say go down to the roundabout, come back up, and then stay on Fitzroy, loop around Fitzroy there, what would be? Are you suggesting that we keep both of those stops at CAPEC and Fitzroy, and also Fitzroy and King James, or that we somehow space those out? Just a clarifying question.
I would space them out. I agree with you. You don't need both of those routes up on the north there, or both stops. You could put them where you think is. I think you can combine, which would be a little bit of savings time, but not that much. But I think that eliminating 4541 and 4984 away, that wouldn't bother me. I think at this particular point in time, but I think you have more people getting at the other stops to the east.
Okay, yeah, and I just asked because it might be quite if we eliminate those, 4541 and 4984, we might not be able to find a space for stops west of there. So we'd be on Fitzroy, but we'd just be going right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I don't have a problem with that. Not at this particular point in time. I just don't think that CAPEC and Hard Rock at this point in time are of any value. But
okay,
certainly,
I understand.
The people. I think getting people to the Hy-Vee, but I'm more concerned about the people that are on Fitzroy and the topography in that area is the steps. But I agree with that. So I think we would be perhaps maybe look back at is not a good. If we were to make the change, I think it would be someday we may go back and say that wasn't a good decision. So I would just soon stick with what we have of using Fitzroy. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the other commissioners sharing their thoughts and the equity concerns and all of that. I do want to remind people, though, that there's also the other side of the equity concerns. Like, if we send those buses down, make the loop, most of the buses will not even stop there, because at 9 riders a day, most of the runs, there will not be anybody. So you sit on the bus, you go down there, you make the turnaround seemingly pointlessly. People won't be aware that this is the discussion that we had. And, a bus is, say we have 30 people on the bus, you only add 2 minutes to each of those bus trips. The bus runs out there, I think, at least every half hour, usually during the day. So it adds up. And I mean, those are existing riders who we are negatively impacting. And so it's a trade-off. If you live down there, if you rely on the bus, obviously it's bad if your bus stop goes away. If you are taking that bus and each time you take it, you have to make that detour, that's also a negative impact. So I would caution to ignoring the second part. And I mean, it's very prominent. People showed up here and testified. Last time we had people who were excited about the service, faster access, more access to Verona. So yeah, it's a trade-off. The other thing I want to say, I mean, and I brought that point up about future development that came up many times. I mean, future development might generate more demand, but it's not there yet. And so planning, putting a stop there where in 3 years there's going to be future development, doesn't do anything right now. And we're not talking about rail investment where once you lay down the rails, you basically can't change it anymore. So as Sean, I think, indicated, if new apartments go down either at Nesbitt and Fitrona or that quarry King James area develops, I mean, then we can revisit this. We can either put a new route in there, maybe reroute something else. So yeah, I think I don't think making the jog down to the roundabout is an obvious solution here. So I'll leave it at that. I guess we do have to talk about the other stops still too, but I'll stop here.
Yeah, did you have other comments you wanted to make, or you want to hold on that for now, Harold?
Did anybody else? I mean, I don't want to jump from one discussion to the other if other people still had comments on this piece of it.
Alder Okovich, are you looking at more on Fitrona?
Yeah, I just had one quick question. Do you have the ridership numbers for stops 4510, 4616, and 4379? I didn't see those in the presentation.
Since they're still being served, I'm not sure if I had them in there. There's mostly about stops that are being deleted. So 4510 is always going to be served.
Okay. I was just curious.
I do want to say there's another reason why we went with this two-way route that doesn't double back on itself. So what will happen is there isn't a ton of space on those Fitchburg stops as well. You're going to have a bus that you're going to double the amount of trips that are going up and down, and they're also going to hit stops twice. So you really need to look at a head sign, or you get on the wrong bus. That's just another reason why we usually don't like to double back. It confuses some folks and they might get on the wrong bus. It's something that people learn if they live in the area and they ride a lot. But that's just another reason why we did it this way, is kind of more simplicity and for user design for folks where they know where the bus is going. And that's another thing too, you can't really see it in this map, but the current D2 right now, the folks on Maple Grove actually have to go out of direction, and we're still getting 80 people there. Even though that, if you get on at the quick trip at Maple Grove McKee, you're going south and out of direction for quite some time. So it's important. It doesn't really show it on this map, but one of the changes that this proposed change is doing is kind of straightening out that Maple Grove spot. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that fact of when we double back on ourselves, yeah, we might have some issues of stop crowding with a couple different buses that could be trying to serve very small stops at the same time, and people might get on the wrong bus. But Mike has.
So yeah, just I need to preface this because we collect ridership data all the time, and I don't know which data set was used for this presentation, but the data, the stop boarding data that I have in my cheat sheet back pocket has about 22 boardings a day at 4201. That's the northbound stop by the Hy-Vee. That's kind of the main stop. The rest of those in there have 2, 3, 4, that kind of level. But in the low 20s, 22, I would say. Just one other thing that I would throw out there, just for discussion, is as I throw out some other concepts that we've talked about. One thing that we did look at was taking 4200, 4201. Those are the main stops by the Hy-Vee and Target, and moving those south onto Limestone, just east of Fitrona, or at least moving them a little bit south to the Fitrona and Limestone intersection area. And I know that wouldn't make a big difference in the roughly a half-mile walk between there and the roundabout, but it would make a little bit of a dent. The downside of that would be it would relocate those stops away from the front door of the Target and the Hy-Vee and kind of move them to the back door, which is makes them a little bit harder to find and stuff like that. But we that was a concept that we looked at that might kind of at least make it a little bit better.
Okay, thanks. Other comments? Did you have comments, Harold, on other of the stops?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you mind pulling up the Badger Park Street area map? Okay. Yeah, I think what you present there all makes sense. The one thing I was wondering about, so the B for now is going to stay on Park and Badger and not going through Hughes, right?
Correct. Yep.
But eventually with BRT, that's going to change.
That's what's currently in the locally preferred alternative for North-South BRT. And I don't want to put anything out there right now because we're just kind of investigating, but we are kind of looking at that and just kind of looking at some options. To be perfectly transparent, we're struggling to make everything fit in the area just west of Hughes, a BRT station, as well as a terminal for 3 local routes that kind of has to fit in a relatively small area there. So, we're just kind of looking at that and trying to make it work, or, maybe looking at adjusting. But for now, the B would stay on Park Street. If nothing else, that would allow it to do different things while Park Street, BRT, and the redevelopment there is under construction. So, for example, having stops on Park Street would give us the flexibility if, for example, Hughes Street was closed in one direction or whatever for some water main connection or construction of the BRT platforms. We'd kind of need a place to go, and so those stops would give us a place to go at least temporarily. But to kind of end on what I said before, we are kind of struggling with that route on Hughes and Cypress, and so not to spoil anything, but we might kind of relook at that a little bit as well.
Okay, I was wondering if that's what was going on. Where was the BRT station supposed to be, like according to the current plan?
Just on Hughes, just west of Park. If we did stay on Park, we would have it on the north side of Hughes.
Okay.
So if we were to kind of continue looking at that, that's what we would do. But with the LPA, locally preferred alternative, it's on Hughes, just west of Park.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. And then, do you mind going to the University Row map? Yeah. So I mean, that one we're taking away the stop from right in front of the clinic and kind of moving it around the corner, and that's because UW Health wants there to be the drop-off area, which you say is not compatible with the bus stop. Is that
Yeah, the short term is we need to relocate for that construction project. And as I mentioned, they have, like 50 feet or something of space, and it could either be pick up and drop off, or it could be a bus stop. Our concern is if it's a bus stop and people want to pick up, drop off, they have no other option. They will park there. And so at first we were trying to kind of say it should be a bus stop because we need that. But as we thought about it some more, I have pretty strong concerns that we wouldn't pull in there, and half the time there's somebody dropping somebody off there. And, we'd ask them to not park in our bus stop, and they'd say, well, I have to drop this person off at a clinic and I don't know where else to go. So there's that concern. But then on the long term, there's the concern of continuing to make the double left turn at Whitney and University, and then University Row. The blocks here are pretty short, and we have other clinics around. For example, there's a clinic at East Washington 6th, and we don't have a stop there. The stop is on East Washington, is 2 blocks away. So having this be one short block away isn't really an overarching concern for us. We have we can't be at the front door of everything that really should have front door service. But that would solve that problem, and it would also improve connections. And for example, people wanting to just take anything going east towards town, I don't care if it's an F, a 2838, I don't care, just give me anything. That'll give them one place to catch all of that. So there are benefits to it besides just accommodating the development. And so we've proposed it to be a permanent change as opposed to a temporary detour.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the flipping around from not making those left turns, that makes total sense. The concern with the parking in the bus stop, I totally get that. If you put it on the other, if you change the direction, then I guess the stop would be across the street from the clinic. Probably people will still stop there and drop people off. So yeah,
that's something we looked at as well, having it on the east side of University Row, and just flipping the direction, but also stopping there. They will have that street under construction to the point that things are shifted over and that space is not available for some times. Okay. We've also had challenges. We were there at one point, I believe, and there were complaints, and there were I think there was a visibility issue with a driveway, if I recall. There were probably some other complaints, but overall, we'd kind of like being a terminal. We'd kind of like a spot that's a little bit more solid, where we kind of own our space and we know we're not going to be pushed somewhere else by some other thing at some point. We've had challenges with that as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe UW Health can make it a point to have good signage to point people in the direction of the bus stop or something like that. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Robbie, go ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify a couple things. The hospital runs a shuttle from there. They're still going to have a remote parking lot here. Is that correct? Or is that totally going away with the new development?
Oh, I think I knew at one point, and I cannot remember what they're doing with that.
Because they run a shuttle from here, from this location to the hospital. And I'm trying to figure out if that runs all the time or only during certain hours. And also if it's available to anyone going to University Hospital, or if it's only for people who have a parking permit in this lot. And I guess the reason I'm asking is that they were very adamant that they wanted excellent service from University Avenue and University Bay Drive up to the hospital instead of having people walk. And now it seems that they're okay having people walk from their clinic and their parking lot over. So I guess I'm wondering what the situation is with the shuttle, because we did have somebody say, I moved into an apartment specifically so I could take the bus directly to the hospital. But I guess my other question was, and you can answer all this together, is there a BRT stop on University here, or is it like over by Whitney? I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, nearest BRT station is Eau Claire, which is not labeled on this map, but it's Sheboygan, just east of the word Sheboygan.
Okay.
Yeah, just
okay,
2376 essentially is the BRT station.
Okay, because it doesn't go that down University Avenue. Right, got it.
Right.
Thank you. Forgot about that. Okay. So I guess I was just wondering if the parking lot is still going to be there, and if they're going to be upset that their employees no longer have a direct shuttle to the hospital.
I can check on that if you'd like.
Okay. You know why I'm asking that.
I think I do.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all you had then, Robbie?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Ann. I think this University Row makes a lot of sense. The changes that you've done for all of the good reasons that you've addressed tonight. I really don't see any negatives in this at all. I think it's good. I like getting rid of those left turns for the bus, and the left turn for the bus to be in the left turn lane of the double left on from Whitney. So I like this. I like this solution very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, other comments or questions? I just have one quick question back on Fitrona. Could you remind me, up in the corner, I'm not sure if I have the numbers right, Mike, 4984, 4541 versus 4836, 49, 97. What is the distance between? It looks like they're very close. What is the distance between those?
Yeah, they're extremely close. Let me look. The distance between the intersections is about 600 feet. Our stop spacing is standard is about a quarter mile. It's a little more complicated than that, but a quarter mile is about 1,300 feet, 1,320. So we would never suggest stop spacing that would be less than half of that. In addition, one of those stops is, I believe, in kind of bad condition. I can't remember which though, or what's wrong with it. But anyway, yeah, it's about 600 feet compared to about 1,320, which is 1,300, which would be our desired. So even if we made no changes, we would suggest closing one of those pairs, or somehow consolidating that into one pair.
Okay, so it'd be a very short distance that somebody would need to walk additionally if those stops were closed. So it's the other stops on Fitrona that result in a much longer walk. Would that be correct? The ones down toward Nesbitt?
Yes, the Fitrona and Nesbitt, they're 4132 and 4649, kind of middle bottom of the screen, Fitrona and Nesbitt. Right. I would say those are resulting in significantly longer walk than any of the changes suggested at the top right side of the map.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks, Mike. Okay, we've had a lot of discussion here, in particular about the Fitrona changes. So we have a couple of options. We can make motions that address all of the changes or part of the changes, or staff can bring them back to us next time if they think that they might have something that might address people's concerns. So let me ask staff first what their thoughts are about that before we go to motions.
There's some things we could do with running things and what we would call on a detour when things get going, but since the last meeting was canceled, we're really in crunch time right now with August.
Okay.
So going back to the drawing board would be very difficult. We're just really running out of time with our lead time we have for our new software to get the stuff in there. But that being said, when there's constructions and stuff, we run things on a detour. Sometimes when we start up a new pick, we run things on a detour until we figure them out. So we do have some flexibility there, but as far as kind of coming back, we're really running out of time to get the stuff in for August.
I just want to understand what our options are. Mike, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just sorry to add to that. Maybe this is a question of my colleagues at Metro here, but if a change to this were suggested, if it were concise enough, could we take that and go with it? I'm going to suggest it is, but I'm going to ask my colleagues Sean and Mick if that's true, or if we need to go back to the drawing board and kind of sketch something out and bring it back at the next meeting. I would suspect that if the action were concise enough, we could probably implement it with that. But I'm going to rely on my other staff here to agree with that or not.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the timeline, I mean, maybe Mick has some more questions. I would personally prefer to have a direction to go from this meeting, but Mick, if you have any other options.
I have heard.
No.
I'm just going to summarize that, and let me ask the commission members how they feel about the accuracy of my comments. I have heard a lot of concerns about the changes on this slide, the Fitrona stops. I heard some questions, but I didn't hear any real objection to the other changes. So would it be a fair, raise your hand if I have that wrong? Is everybody seem to be fairly supportive of all the changes with the exception of Fitrona? Alder Okovich.
Yeah, I mean, this is really tough. And so I'll say Harold's comments are pretty compelling, and 1 to 2 minutes isn't a lot, but the D is really stretched. And it does add up. I'll say I am moving towards what staff has here minus the stops at the Quick Trip, which are K-Peck and McKee.
Harold?
Yeah, I think the other thing to consider is, I mean, I think we have all the facts. Metro has explored many options. We have data on ridership, on how long it would take to do certain things and potential development. So I'm just not very confident. I mean, it's a fundamental dilemma, like it's a trade-off between a certain type of coverage and another type of coverage, and that's not going to change. That is just a decision that we are being tasked to make based on city policies, on equity concerns, on all that. So I'm somewhat skeptical that, I mean, we would have a very similar discussion if it came back. And there doesn't seem to be a magic bullet where like, oh, we haven't considered whatever, flying over the area and therefore saving time.
Yeah, I went back as I was reviewing this. I went back and looked at the Metro Transit Network redesign policy direction, which was ridership mostly, with some lower frequencies to reach a few more places. But we also have the bus stop standards that we have to take into account as well. So balancing all of that is clearly very, very difficult. We have maximized coverage, which is impossible to do. Maximizing ridership, obviously those don't go in tandem because we can't do both. And we voted in favor of mostly maximizing ridership and optimizing efficiency because we have to stay on time. So I just went back to refresh myself on the policy direction that we all in the city agreed on. Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I guess I'm hearing a lot of the concerns with those who came out and presented before the body, and it circles back around to the equity question. And so, in my mind, Chair, you had kind of alluded to a worry there. 90% of what we heard, would that change if the staff went back and tweaked in those areas that had some concerns? And so I'm not clear, and I guess I'm muddling through this. I need to hear if we separated some of the discussions that we were ready to move forward on, and those related to equity, or those that we still had some questions. And Harold said nothing would change. And so that's the question that I am struggling with, is that if we separated and improved the ones that we all kind of agree that it fits exactly what the process was designed to be, and if we sent those areas back where there was still some questions, would that tweaking bring us closer to a yes than we are now? And so I don't know, and that's something that I would like to hear someone say or clarify for me. If those are areas that we sent back for tweaking, would that change and make a difference in us being 90% agreeable with what's been before us?
Yeah, and Alder, before I hear from staff, I don't know how people would be willing to vote on this, because I've heard comments on both sides, because as Harold mentioned, although the people didn't come tonight, there were a lot of people who came at the prior meeting and spoke about the extension of the D2 and how excited they were about the service and looking for that efficiency in getting places as well. So we may have to have a motion and a vote to see how people come down on this, because staff is saying that we need to take action tonight in order to keep them on schedule. So I'll throw it to staff to make sure that I'm hearing that all correctly.
I think that sounds correct. We do need to get a decision. It would be very helpful for us to get a decision tonight, at least on most of the items. Yeah, it would make us tight if we waited to another meeting.
I don't know if that answers all your question, Alder.
And these are kind of the whittled down options that we made throughout the process. I mean, we can go down to the roundabout and or we can do it as proposed. But I kind of echo what Harold was saying. I don't think we'd come back with anything significantly different. These are the two finalists we've had, after a lot of analysis. So, if we can get a direction, that would be great. And
okay. Yeah. Does that help, Alder?
I don't know if it helps, but it gives us what I heard is staff saying that they needed some decision made tonight rather than circling back. I was clear. I heard that.
Yep. I heard that as well. Is that all you had, Alder Harrington McKinney, for right now? Okay, thanks. Harold, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed changes to the stop locations, and implicit with that, the route.
Okay, so you're making a motion to approve all of the proposed changes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, was that Alder Okovich?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so, Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion?
I mean, I've spoken a lot already, so I think I've made the points. It's a trade-off. It's a difficult situation. I feel very bad for the residents who will lose direct access to transit service. I wish we could run both directions. One thing to note, I mean, we're having this discussion in the context of a very good thing, which is transit service improvement. We have new service to Verona. The people on McKee at Manchester they have had service with the 75. Now they will have all-day service on the D. They can go many places, be more independent, have more freedom. But yeah, I mean, 100%, if you live in one of those apartments and you lose your transit service, that's not good. So I very much understand people coming here and speaking for that. But the trade-off is, yeah, we lose directness. We could have that discussion. I mean, why do we stop at the roundabout? I mean, there's probably also people living down a little bit further down this bit. So we could add, it only takes another minute to go a little bit farther down. So, I mean, that's what we're being tasked to do, make these tough decisions, weigh trade-offs, and that's where I come down. I very much respect other people on the commission for coming down differently, but yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so the motion is to approve all of the proposed changes, which would include the Fitrona changes as proposed. So I sense that we would need, is there further discussion before we go to a vote? We've had a lot of discussion already, but I don't want to stop anybody having additional discussion at this point. Okay, so I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 members here, which means 5 yeses would be needed to pass the motion. Robbie.
I would actually like to separate the Fitrona D route, and then to have a separate vote on that. So we would pass the rest of them and then have a separate vote on this one.
So is that a substitute, Robbie?
Yeah.
Okay, so Robbie has a substitute motion. Eric, am I doing that right? To separate the Fitrona, stop the Fitrona changes from the rest.
But I do need a second on that.
Alder Harrington McKinney, is that a second?
That is a second.
Thank you.
Okay, so Eric, that's a motion to separate the Fitrona changes. Is it
I guess
okay to handle as a substitute?
I guess the question would be if Harold wants to accept that as a friendly amendment, might be the first way to go. Then we.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could do it as an amendment, and then if Harold's okay with it being friendly with separating it, then we could do it that way. Otherwise, we have to vote on the amendment.
Yep, that is my understanding as well.
Harold, are you willing to have the motion be splitting the approval into 2 sections? All of the changes with the exception of Fitrona, and then handling the Fitrona changes separately. Are you okay with that, Harold, or would you like us to vote on a substitute?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so the motion on the table would be to have 2 decisions, 2 votes. And so
if it's a friendly amendment, we don't have to vote on the amendment.
Right.
So we just
Correct.
have 2 votes. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Right. So so we have 2 motions, if you will, a motion to approve all the proposed changes with the exception of Fitrona. Is that phrased okay to everybody? And then we would have a separate motion on the Fitrona changes. Motion to approve the Fitrona changes. Because as Harold made the motion to approve all of them, the two motions would be to approve all but Fitrona and to approve the Fitrona changes. Am I correct?
I have a procedural question,
yes.
because th- I don't know
So
if
we'll-
there is such thing of a friendly amendment. In council chambers, we don't have friendly amendments.
Well, we're handling it as an amendment, and because Harold was willing to accept the amendment to his original motion, we're changing the original motion. Would that be a fair way of saying it, Eric?
Yeah, and that's under Robert's rules. When we have a friendly amendment, the city council, I think, tracks kind of substitutes more strictly based on some ordinance provisions. I think would be my understanding of why there's that discrepancy.
And we operate under Robert's rules here. So I would propose that we take so right now we have two motions on the table. We'll take them one by one. The first motion is to approve all of the proposed changes with the exception of the Fitrona changes. And for that one, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote.
Roll call, please.
Okay. So there's a motion to approve all of the proposed changes with the exception of the Fitrona changes. So Aiden, could you please call a roll? And again, we need 5 yeses to approve the motion.
Sure. So first is William Okovich,
Yes.
Sean O'Brien, if he's here.
Yes.
Barbara Harrington McKinney,
Alexa, stop timer.
Robbie Weber,
Yes.
Denise Jess,
Sorry, I got muted again by the host. Yes.
thanks. Bill Bremer,
Yes.
Harold Clemes,
Yes.
and Kaylee Jameson.
Yep.
So unanimous, correct?
Yes, that's 8 yeses.
Okay. So no need for me to vote on that. So the first motion is carried. The second motion is to approve the Fitrona changes as proposed. Because that was Harold's motion and we just split his motion into 2. So again, we would need 5 yeses to approve the Fitrona changes as proposed. And if there are not 5 yeses, then we'll have to come back and address that. So I'm assuming a roll call vote. So why don't we do a second roll call vote? And again, the motion is to approve the Fitrona changes as proposed, correct, Harold?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So William Okovich,
Yes.
Sean O'Brien,
Yes.
Barbara Harrington McKinney,
No.
Robbie Weber,
No.
Did you say no, Robbie?
No.
Thank you.
Denise Jess,
No.
Bill Bremer, sorry, Bill Bremer,
Sorry, I was on
Bill, are
mute.
you?
I was on mute. No.
thank you. Harold Clemes,
Yes.
and Kaylee Jameson.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to vote yes. So is that 5 yeses? Is that correct?
Yes, that would make it 5 yeses and 4 nos.
So that means that the motion is carried. I think staff has heard everybody's concerns, and Sean and Mike, as there are future opportunities for changes in the area, I'm sure you will take all of that feedback into consideration.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any last comments before we move on?
Just thank you for the conversation, everybody. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I just
And
wanted
it
to say
can
this
it can be a continuing conversation, correct, Mick?
Yes, of course.
this was very difficult for us, and these aren't easy decisions for us staff either.
And
Okay.
And could I just say that I want to thank the staff for the I was one of those people that you mentioned at the very beginning that are concerned from the initial on the mapping. This is excellent. You guys did a great job. So I appreciate the extra effort that went into putting these proposals together. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Again, a lot of great points on both sides of the conversation, and I'm sure staff heard all of them. So, thanks everybody. Again, any last comments before we move on? Okay. Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Sean. Okay. Next item we have is review and approve the TC annual work plan. I put this together, so I'm gonna take this. There's most of the proposed changes in the July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 annual work plan are fairly minor. They're shown in red type in the red line version. Added some verbiage about making sure that new changes get to Aiden so that we all hear about them, because there have been some instances where that hasn't happened. And we've heard about them at the meeting. There's just been some cleanup in language in a couple of places. The largest change relates to updates to TC with regard to PROAG, the United States Access Board Public Right-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines. And on page 3, under Revitalizing Madison's ADA Transition Plan, we do say that in addition, and that's a review at least every 3 years of the whole ADA Transition Plan, that in addition, the commission will also periodically review the status of compliance with PROAG. We had a lot of discussion and a lot of strong feelings about wanting to hear about PROAG more frequently than once every 3 years. So the change is on page 4, where I added in an annual review of PROAG. And how it's shown is at least annually the commission will review the City of Madison's ongoing compliance with PROAG, and put in a little bit of additional information about what PROAG is in there. And I think that addresses what I have heard from members and how I happen to actually feel myself with regard to that important ongoing compliance in the city. Not implying that we don't, but just wanting to understand where we are in the process. Because PROAG requires that we comply as there's opportunities to reconstruct streets or reconfigure things. So it doesn't mean we aren't in compliance right now, but just how that looks going forward. So that's really all that I had on the work plan. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Bill?
Thanks, Dan. I think you did a great job in putting it together, and I have no problem whatsoever. It met my expectations, actually, maybe perhaps exceeded my expectations. So I think you did a great job of putting it into the work plan. So I thank you very much for all your effort.
Okay. Thanks. And I did talk with staff about how this would work and what the commission would want to see. And they figured out a way that they think that it can work. Harl, go ahead.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you. I was also one of those people who was interested in this topic. I guess the only comment I have, as you said, compliance, it's not like we have a choice to comply, and we're also not going to review every single street project at that level. So yeah, I think this idea of getting an update, how it's been going, what have been some of the challenges with projects, what do we have to do differently than we used to do it? I think that's what I'm personally interested in. And yeah, in the end, we have to comply, and that's a good thing.
Okay. Great. I think that was staff. We had a good discussion about what would staff bring to TC. And I think, Harl, that's along the lines of what you're talking about. Denise, you had some comments. Bill had some comments. A lot of people had comments and expressed a great deal of interest, myself included, as to where are we on the path with regard to PROAG. So anybody have any other comments? If not, we'd need a motion to approve the updated TC annual work plan. Bill?
I'll make a motion for approval of the work plan as presented. Thank you.
Denise?
Yeah, I'd be really happy to second that.
Okay, thanks. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. Okay, I'm seeing no hands, so that motion is carried. Thanks, everybody. Next up, we have Public Works Transportation Projects Review and Feedback on Davidson, Park, Maher, and Gary. And who do we have? Who's going to start us off here?
It'll be me, Jose Navarro.
Okay, Jose, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right, let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, thanks.
Sweet. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jose Navarro. I'm with the transportation departments, and also accompanying me, assisting me, will be Aaron Canton, an engineer from engineering. I also have on here Kevin Lucky, the ped and bike coordinator, also to assist me as well. And so today I'm just here to present the Davidson Street, Maher Avenue, Park Court, Gary Street reconstruction. It's kind of a lot to say, but I'm just here to present kind of what we're going to be proposing for the area. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of background information. And so the project location here, we're kind of near the Cottage Grove Road, Atwood Avenue kind of intersection area. And so here you can see our project limits is Maher Avenue from Cottage Grove Road all the way down to Lake Edge Boulevard. And then we also have Davidson Streets from Maher Avenue to Dempsey Road. And then we also have Park Courts from Maher Avenue to Dempsey Road. And then we also have Gary Streets from Dempsey Road all the way down. I will note that originally we were going to do Gary Streets and Eleanor Street. But then as we did further investigation during kind of a preliminary data, we found that the utilities were just kind of they just were pretty old and just need to be replaced. So then we extended all the way down to the cul-de-sac. And then here we also have the additional storm sewer improvements. That will be kind of on utility easements near the YMCA. And then you'll see what kind of the impacts that does later on. And so kind of just showing off the big picture thing is that, this project is kind of the first thing in a 3-phase part for Maher Avenue. And so what we do here will eventually be the setup for the rest of Maher Avenue. So here you can see that we're kind of planning on fall 2025 and spring, summer 2026 for construction for the area. And, you can see here in the blue that, these are going to be future projects on Maher all the way down to Buckeye Road as we keep going through the phases. And so it's really important that what we do here, is good. And so just showing off another big picture item. So where we are in the process. So we've did already 2 public information meetings, each with their own questionnaire. So the first one was just kind of general information and just kind of see like, okay, well, you know, if we did construction, you know, would you need access to like your driveway, like, you know, to kind of fit those needs along with like rain garden opportunities. And then the second public information meeting was more of the kind of nuts and bolts of like, okay, here are the design alternatives that we're presenting to you. You know, please fill out the survey, tell us what you like about it, you know, like if you support it, if you can live with it, if you do not support it. And then here we are today. We're here at the Transportation Commission meeting to present kind of the alternative we're showing off. And so what our project entails is that, you know, it's a full street reconstruction. We're going to be introducing curb and gutter to the area, sidewalk, driveway aprons. The sanitary sewer and water will also be replaced. The storm sewer, new storm sewer will be put in, and new storm water features will also be added. And then, you know, it's a reconstruction. So like the replacement of all the asphalt that's there, it's going to be, you know, dug up and placed anew. And then any of the existing street lighting that's there, we'll just have it be there to be remained. And then if we'll also look at, you know, improving it as well. And then any opportunities for rain gardens, if they had told us in the first questionnaire they were interested, and if, you know, if the criteria fits, we would then, you know, contact that owner and let them know. And so moving on, since we're doing this design, you know, like, okay, well, what is Madison's design philosophies? You know, how do we do this thing? And so we looked at, you know, Vision Zero, citywide initiative for us, where we kind of like want to achieve, you know, 0 traffic related and severe injuries by the year 2035. And so for this area, we aren't on the high injury network. And currently we don't really have, there's no sidewalks or, you know, there's no bike facilities as well. And we did a speed study. And so like, you know, there was major speed concerns, or what we found in our speed study was like, there was high speed southbound on Maher Avenue. And then there was huge concerns on like a high speed train movement around the Lake Edge Boulevard intersection. I'll show what's kind of going on at the intersection because it's a pretty big pavement area. And so for the Vision Zero kind of philosophy goal for the staff is that, you know, we want to add curb, we want to add sidewalk, and we want to add pedestrian crossings. And so there's another portion, the Complete Green Streets Guide. And so for this street area, we've decided, you know, to go with a neighborhood yield street kind of street type, you know, where we'll have like one-sided parking. We're going to kind of shorten up the pavements to present the traffic calming effect. Our target speed is going to be about 20 miles per hour. And then, you know, there's a big concern for trees in this area. So we're going to try to like preserve what is there. And so with these things being said, for our kind of like design guide and philosophy, is that what you see here is what we presented to them in the questionnaire. This is not the alternative we were proposing, but just kind of give you a background of what we had shown them before. And so what we had presented to them was a both sides sidewalk option. And you can see here, this is Maher Avenue, by the way. You can see that if we were going to do both sides of sidewalk, we would eliminate parking along the whole kind of corridor, and then we would do major impacts to the existing trees canopy. And so I will probably bring up the trees a lot because in this area they have like a huge, like they're probably one of the best in Madison for the tree canopy. They have a score of like 95 out of 100. There's very, very like nice trees here. And so if we were to go this route, you know, we would eliminate the parking. The tree removal, it would be about 7 trees that are going to be known removals. We're going to have like 10 potential tree impacts. And so we gave this option out to the public to fill out their survey. And so here we have the one-sided option, and this is how the slabs are going to go for each street, you know, either both sides or one side. So for the one-sided sidewalk option, we have kind of like more pockets of parking available. The trees are going to be less impacted. And so we decided to do one side on the east side here, just because, you know, we have the park that is located here, just for, you know, people to kind of go down the streets and then, you know, be able to reach the park. We do have sidewalk connecting to Drexel Avenue, because they're residents during our first public information meeting had like let us know like, hey, there's sidewalk on Drexel Avenue. Could you guys do a connection? We're like, yeah, we could look into it. And so that's what we did here to kind of complete the network on this side. And so here, we're also kind of like narrowing down the streets to like 22 feet to 26 to also kind of present that traffic calming. The existing pavement out there is around like, I think it's at least 30 feet to like maybe 32. So the pavement's pretty wide. And so as we keep going through the slides here, we also presented an option at the Lake Edge Boulevard and Maher Avenue intersection. Do they want to see a traffic circle or just kind of a regular T intersection? And so here you can kind of see in this image that sea of pavement that, the high-speed turning movement concerns. So we addressed that by kind of like straightening it up first, shortening up pretty well, and then also giving this traffic circle option to them where if they wanted to, there's an opportunity to do like a planted median if a resident wanted to take care of that. If not, then we would just kind of like leave that defaulted to red colored concrete. And so these are the two alternatives that we proposed, and you'll see kind of in the alternative that we, the staff, propose, you'll see that it's going to be a traffic circle just from the survey results. And so moving on to Davidson Street, if we do both sides of sidewalk, it would pretty much decimate the tree canopy that is there. And, there's 24 known tree removals. There's 2 potential tree impacts. Here, the full street width would be 26, kind of like give that one-sided parking for that neighborhood yield street. Even if we did short it down, that option was looked at to have like no parking, we would still be impacting the trees quite a bit. And then moving on to the one-sided option here, we kind of like create some pockets of parking. And then we kind of like weave in and out to kind of preserve those trees. And then there's 2 tree removals that were presented in the survey, but you'll see in our design that we're proposing, we've actually kind of saved this tree here at this corner. But there's still 2 known tree removals here in this presented one, and then 6 potential tree impacts. And if we go to the Gary Street of both sides of sidewalk, it's kind of the similar situation. And here we're aiming to provide like 2-sided parking because there is the YMCA here. A lot of people go there. There's children that play in this field a lot. And, if we provided both sides, it would just completely decimate not only, public right-of-way trees, but also private trees as well, since they're so close to that right-of-way line. And then there's about 36 known tree removals and then 12 potential tree impacts. And again, the full street width for a 2-sided parking would be 28 feet. That's just the both sides. And then the one-sided option, we're looking at kind of keeping the sidewalk here to the north, and then also just because the YMCA is there, and then also providing 2-sided parking. And here you can see like the tree impact is very mitigated. There is 7 known tree removals, but it's just going to be that bunch here. And that's because the storm water improvements that leads up to the YMCA through that utility easement, they're literally right in the way of it. They're in line with where the pipes are at, so they will have to go. And so we communicated with the YMCA, and they were okay with that. And so moving on to Park Courts, what we presented to them was, a newly one-way park court. We did this just because the right-of-way here is 30 feet, so it's very small. And pretty much, doing a one-way will kind of provide us, more room to just focus on one direction of travel and also provide parking. Because when there was the Dempsey Road reconstruction, they put that path here. They took out all the parking. There's no parking along Dempsey Road here. And, we still want to provide a few pockets for residents to kind of get to this area and park. And so we're also providing a sidewalk on the south side here. It is over encompassing, Parks land, but we are in talks with Parks and getting that approved with them. And so We also are providing a new accessible parking pad, a few stalls for, people who have accessible needs. And then here you can also see we still have some potential removals. We're trying to keep the pavement within the existing pavement edge, because we walked through with forestry and, they gave us, they told us like, hey, if you can kind of keep our improvements within the existing pavement edge, that'll give us a greater chance of preserving the trees that are out there. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep any of our improvements within that pavement edge, to help preserve the trees. And so you can kind of see like there's a strict line right here for the curb line. There's a few landscaping things, and I'll show it in the proposed alternative, but that's the reason why we did it. And so here, the proposed one-way direction is eastbound. And hopefully, we are hopefully providing enough space for the parking operation trucks to go through, because they come through there a lot, to do what they need to do. So we have about like 17 feet all the way to 21 feet. And here, that would be park courts. And we are kind of extending the sidewalk all the way to the path. And so moving on to, we threw those options out at the public, and that's from that survey. We had 126 responses, and so the alternative designs that I just shown you is what they had saw. And then we gave them the option: do they support it? Can they live with it, or do they not support it? And so the design alternatives where sidewalk was present on both sides, an average of 73% do not support. And then a design alternative, which is one side of sidewalk, we had an average of 29% that do not support. So about 71% that can live with it or support it. And then there was also, concerns about the trees, and we've received plenty of emails, plenty of phone calls. We've also received 2 petitions, a totaling of about like 79 or 39 signatures. And so we went out and met with these petition organizers to hear their concerns. They're the ones out there. They're the ones who see the actual things going on. And so, a lot of their concerns were opposing, the sidewalk, but also like concerns of just like the trees, the light levels that are out there, the curb and gutter sometimes. And pretty much, we took some of that feedback. Here I have just an example of like the hickory tree that we're shown to be removed. And so in our design alternative that we're going to be proposing, we help, preserve that tree. And I'll talk about a few other changes that we'll be making to kind of like address a few of their concerns. But kind of going to the main thing, here is our design that we're going to be proposing. And so I will just kind of zoom on in. I'll start with Maher Avenue and just show you kind of what we got. So with Maher Avenue, we are proposing the one-sided sidewalk option with the sidewalk on the east side heading on down. So here is about, and you can let me know if I need to zoom in more, but here we have 22 feet of lane width curb face to face. So here there won't be parking available. However, as we get a little bit past these existing tree lines, because as I stated before, we're trying to keep within the existing pavement edge to give these trees a better fighting chance. As we keep going, we have a 3-foot terrace, we're pretty close, but we expand out to 26 feet to provide, at least one-sided parking. And as we keep going down, the trees start not being there, so then we can kind of alleviate some of that pressure on the terrace and on the street itself to go to a 5-foot terrace. And so we hug the existing curb line here, pushing out this way. And then here you can see at the Maher Avenue and Davidson intersection, here's that hickory tree that I had highlighted as yellow. Previously, we had the sidewalk going straight through it, but that would be the removal. But now, we've heard their concerns and we kind of went back to the drawing board and, deflected the road a little bit to go downwards to keep that back of sidewalk within that pavement edge, the existing one. And so here we provide curb ramps. We also have a curb ramp going to the west because we chose Davidson's sidewalk to be on the north side strictly because if you keep going west of Davidson, if you keep going down 2 blocks, eventually you will hit sidewalk that's going to be on the north side. So we kind of want to have a setup for the future to have that connectivity if that, reconstruction on Davidson West of here would occur. And so keep going down Maher Avenue. Here we have 26 feet, so providing at least one-sided parking. Here we just, still provide a 5-foot terrace. We keep going down until we hit Park Court. So Park Court, we have 17 feet. It's pretty tight here where we're trying to provide a sidewalk on the south side here and then also preserving this tree here and this tree here. And so, Park Court itself is, like I said before, it's 30 feet of right of way. There's not a lot of room. We're trying to preserve a lot of the trees that are here hugging this curb line, the existing pavement edge. And then as we make our way down, we finally expand out to 28 feet here in this area because since there's no parking on Dempsey Road through that reconstruction, we want to provide both sides of parking here. And then we keep going, and then here we hit that traffic circle that we were talking about. A lot of this is just still subject to change a little bit, so there's some tweaks. We kind of still need to run a little bit of turning movements to get this traffic circle just right. But we are providing here in this image, 12 feet face to face. And then here you can kind of see a little bends where this traffic circle is at. As we the team had kind of spoken like, okay, well, if we're going to do a traffic circle, we kind of need some deflection to make the northbound direction, wiggle it a little bit to kind of like not get them to just speed straight ahead. Because this is the area where a lot of the speeding had occurred through the speed study. And then we're kind of squaring up the intersection here to address those high-speed turning movements. And then also providing, some sidewalk crossings here. Here we also have for the Drexel Avenue connection. As we keep going to west, here we connect right here. And then we also will eventually stop here on Maher Avenue. This is kind of a playroom here. I don't know if this is exactly where we're going to end our limits, but it's somewhere around here. But this would be where the start of the second phase of Maher Avenue would continue on in the future projects. So, I did a few future line work to see, okay, well, if we have our sidewalk here, what does it look like for that second phase? And so for that second phase, there could be potential of both sides of sidewalk here to connect. So from here, it'll connect down or north. And then on this side here, that sidewalk we can set it up so the sidewalk can just go up to here, kind of completing that network. And then moving on to, Davidson. If it can load for me. Oh boy. So Davidson Street, going back up. Here's that hickory tree that we helped preserve. It'll be 20 feet of curb face to face here. And then here we just kind of a squished up 3-foot terrace. And then that expands out to 26 feet of curb face to face to provide that one-sided parking. We also looked at, okay, well, where are the driveways at? How much parking can we really get? And so here we just also have 5-foot of terrace as it kind of like bends on outward, and then keeping that pavement edge, that existing pavement edge as our curb line. We squish back down to 22 feet. This is a spot where no parking would be available, and then a 3-foot terrace. So then, we keep moving on. There's just like no parking here. And then we do have a tree removal, but this tree removal is around, it's like a 3-inch, I'm guessing it's like a newly planted tree. So we kind of push the sidewalk through that one. But here you can see that we have a problem where we have 2 large trees that are right next to each other, both near the pavement edge. And so what we do with our sidewalk here is that we kind of bend it around with no terrace. And so we keep doing that. So we kind of bend out right already over here to open up to a place where where parking could be available one-sided. And then we have about a 5-foot terrace. And so then we keep going. We then bend back down to a 22 feet curb face to face. And then that sidewalk then connects back into the path, the Dempsey Road path. However, we are in talks. So we talked to TE and said, okay, well, how much road width can we get away with face to face to still provide one-sided parking? And so we're trying to maximize, after TC, we'll try to maximize kind of like areas like this where, maybe we can just straighten this line out a little bit. So, there's not really trees here. We can provide hopefully 20 feet of curve face to face, at least, provide some parking in this area. And so that's kind of the adjustments we'll make. And then moving on to Park Court. Zoom in on here. So here we kind of have like a really squished part, 17 feet curved face to face, just because, there's a lot of trees here. It's really tough to like expand out without, pushing it into their limits. And then here we kind of have 21 feet of curved face to face, so providing that parking. And then also providing a 5-foot terrace between the sidewalk on the south side where we can. And so as we keep going, we do a lot of bending in and outs just because there's very large trees here at this park. Here we have like 19 feet curved face to face. And then we can go back, it expands back out to that 21 where parking is available. And the people who park here will be parking on this side because the one-way direction is going eastbound. And then the accessible parking pad would be located here where it would connect on down to this driveway where they can just keep going down to the shelter. And then we keep going to the east. Here we have 20 feet, so it's still one-sided parking could be achieved here. And then on this corner here, we believe that we don't think that we should have parking along these two driveways here, just because the 20 feet is just super, it's not a lot of space for a person to back out. And so I will also note that since we are connecting the sidewalk to the path, the grade here is pretty steep. Per the rules, though, we are allowed to match the grade of the existing street. It's just that, it's not ideal. We have talked to parks about potentially having a sidewalk that goes through this parks a little bit to kind of bob and weave around this playground. Maybe potentially going from all the way to here, matching the shelter to go connect to the path somewhere along these lines. But, I don't think they were in favor of that. So currently we just have the sidewalk that connects to the path here. Now moving on to Gary Street. Here we connect to whatever is existing out there. So we have a 27-foot curb face to face, 5-foot terrace. And then here we provide just one-sided parking just because the trees are here. We kind of want to keep preserving them. And then we kind of keep following that one parking until we hit this intersection here. Also to note that there are poles out here that kind of get in the way. So you'll see kind of like a curb bump outs to kind of avoid that. So there's a pole here that's pretty substantial connection. And so here at this intersection, we kind of like shrink everything a little bit up. There is existing sidewalk on this west side here, so we kind of connect to that. And then on the east side too, there's also existing sidewalk that we will also be connecting to. And so as we move on down Gary Street, here we provide 28 feet curb face to face to provide that both sides of parking for the YMCA area. And then as we keep going down, we just keep kind of keeping that format until we hit Eleanor Street. As we keep going, so zoom in. And here you can kind of see shown, that tree removal of that bunch of trees where the stormwater improvements are going to be. It's literally right in line with that storm pipe. And so here we are just connecting to the existing Eleanor Streets of, and then we kind of move on down to Gary Streets. And so this is kind of the portion where the petition was at for of like about 22 signatures. So we went out there, we met with them, and we heard their concerns. And so like big major things were like the trees, opposing sidewalk, the curb and gutter, and then just like keeping their parking as well. So just looking at this now, it's pretty weavy, but we still provide parking here. It goes from 26 to 28 to 22 to 26. We're thinking of adjusting it to just be a straight, as we make our like final adjustments, just do a straight 24 and provide one-sided parking. But the idea is there where 26 parking is going to be here, parking is going to be here, and then parking will be over here as well. So it'll be the same concepts, just the curb face-to-face will just be a little bit adjusted to keep it more simpler. And so we're also doing 22 feet curb face-to-face here, just because there is, poles here. There's also a tree here. So then we kind of scrunch on up, along with scrunching up the terrace space to kind of avoid, both those things. And then we eventually end the sidewalk at this cul-de-sac area at this driveway because there's no homes past that. The rest of that's going to just be WSDOT, a WSDOT parcel near the highway or Stony Road. And so here you can kind of see like that bobbing and weaving a little too much, as I mentioned before. And if we keep going down, then here we'll just provide no parking with that 22 curb face to face. And then, we'll expand that back out to 26 feet and then scrunch it back down to 23. But here at the end of the cul-de-sac, we're kind of presenting a bulb just to kind of give, fire trucks or any like the plows some kind of room to kind of go in and out, because we've heard from residents that they go down this cul-de-sac and then they have that back all the way out. And so like we want to like help alleviate that issue. And because like that's a long way to back out. That's it's a whole block. And so hopefully when we do our training movements for this section, we'll get presented a clear answer to what to do there. And so there is a tree removal here. I will state that's not because of our reconstruction project. That's because the forester who went out there deemed that tree to be unhealthy. So it will just have to go. And so I know it's a lot. That was like, quite a bit, but that's pretty much what I got. I'll leave it open to any questions, concerns.
Jose, before we go to questions and concerns, I believe we have some people from the public who are registered to speak. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. First, we have Kurt Rydell of Maher Avenue, opposes and wishes to speak.
Chair, I don't see Kurt in attendance.
Yeah, I don't see a Kurt either. I see a Chris, a Ken, and a Katya, but I don't see a Kurt.
So next we have Ken Morrow.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So next we have Ken Morrow of Gary Street, opposes and wishes to speak.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
No, we can. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, so I just wanted to say I live at the kind of end of Gary there. I appreciate the attempt to, not remove trees and to keep as much nature there as possible. I just want to say, yeah, there's a lot of nature that is around our neighborhood that we really value. Deers, beavers, cranes that come through. So just a minimum amount of impact would be fantastic. Talking with most of the neighbors here, and I think you'll hear a little more from Katia later as well, we would rather the sidewalk just end at Eleanor. A lot of the residents that would have that one side sidewalk there would just prefer not to have it. It kind of creates problems with cost, problems with maintenance, and a lot of people don't really come to the end of the street. So I don't think it's really going to benefit anyone. So if we could cut the sidewalk earlier, that would be great. Also, personally, I just had a few concerns down at the end of the circle. I wanted to say there's a lot of new trees growing up that are maybe 1, 2, 3 years old, on that far side near the highway. and we really want that bank to grow up. It's really doing a great job of blocking highway noise, blocking, seeing the highway. It's also helping wildlife back in there. That's kind of a marshy prairie area. So if we could, make sure that that circle doesn't expand too big and start cutting into those trees on the far side at all, if we could keep it to the pavement line and avoid all those saplings and things that are really starting to grow up well, that would be fantastic. Again, just for sound, wildlife, everything like that. I think that's mainly what I had to say.
Thank you, Ken. Anybody have questions for the registrant? Okay, thanks very much. Who else do we have?
So next is Katya Marshall of Gary Street. Neither supports nor opposes, but wishes to speak.
Hi, I wasn't sure actually how to, can you hear me okay, actually?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure how to register because I very much support a lot of the work that's being done and also very much oppose the sidewalk as you'll see in the petition that we sent in. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak. Jose Navarro and Aaron Kenton encouraged us to come and share today after we met with them yesterday. I would have actually been more involved a bit earlier in gathering community input, but due to family health needs and actually being the victim of a motor vehicle accident at the corner of Dempsey and Cottage Grove Road by someone going through that red light there operating while intoxicated, I was not able to do anything until today. So I apologize for the late notice, and I appreciate Jose and Navarro and Aaron Kenton's apology for those last minute adjustments to the street. I wanted to add that there are 22 signatures from United Households that express an overwhelming majority of opposition to sidewalk installation. Respectfully, 2 of the homes shared with me verbally that they don't have a strong preference either way. The rest of the signatures represent all of the homes on this cul-de-sac. In addition to utility and street improvements, improved sewer drainage, we are united and want to increase signage. We want signs to reduce traffic, specifically for drivers who are unfamiliar with our street and who mistake it for an on-ramp to Stoughton Road as our block extends upward and eastward towards Stoughton Road. Adding the sidewalks that are concerned can make the street appear more like a thoroughfare. We experience very limited pedestrian traffic, residents, visitors, and service providers accessing homes. Our block is adjacent to wetlands with wildlife, including nesting cranes that return annually, beaver, deer, and other bird life. We do not want to increase pedestrian traffic or foot traffic that may not understand the habits of the wildlife on our street. And we want to reduce the impacts of time spent on energy spent on our street by reducing the sidewalk installation. ADA guidelines came up in yesterday's conversation with city engineers Jose Navarro and Aaron Canton. I would like to understand what specific ADA requirement applies to dead-end residential streets or cul-de-sacs and how this relates to Madison's vision of zero goals. We absolutely support ADA compliance on gateway streets into our neighborhood, which I mentioned yesterday, and areas with blind turns, which I haven't mentioned yet, but there's a significant area on Bowman that goes to Morningside that wraps around and it poses risks to children and pedestrians walking the pets. The only signage there is masked by brush. Residents on both sides of our street have physical limitations and other constraints that make sidewalk maintenance difficult. We are aware of one another's limitations, and that is part of the reason there is opposition to the sidewalk installation. In closing, this is not about resisting accessibility or resisting the accessibility or change. It's about appropriate solutions for a specific context. Our cul-de-sac doesn't contribute to any pedestrian network thoroughfares because we have no through traffic. And I understand that engineers, planners, and residents are all working under tight timelines due to the unexpected project extension onto this block of our street. Perhaps additional time would allow us to develop a solution that truly meets the city's planning goals and the unique needs of the residents I'm representing today. Thank you for considering our perspective and the detailed concerns we've submitted on our letter, photos, and I'm sorry, I'm getting so nervous here. The petition. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Questions for the registered from members of the commission? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thank you for your comments. Aiden, do we have anyone else?
Yes, next we have Chris Marchioni of Eleanor Street supports and wishes to speak.
Hi, good evening. I'm speaking today in support of the project as proposed. I live in the neighborhood. I use the streets every day. I do not drive for the most part. I primarily walk, bus, and bike. Most of the opposition to sidewalks comes from people who primarily drive, but I'm on these streets on foot every single day. And this project is long overdue. Any delay at this point is unnecessary and honestly kind of ridiculous. Everybody knows how poor the condition of these streets are, and the situation there is not good. And as our engineers probably know very well, signage isn't very effective to slow traffic, but one thing that is sidewalks. So I support the proposal and would like to see it approved as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Anybody on the commission have a question for the registrant? Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for commenting. I'm just wondering, since for several areas there's like this question of one-sided sidewalks versus two-sided sidewalks, do you have any thoughts on that piece of it?
This is for Chris. Can we have Chris back, please?
Yes, thanks, Harold. I do think that two-sided sidewalks are the way to go on through streets. Like Maher Avenue would probably be a good candidate for that. But I do, I hate to say, I do agree with the compromise to protect the trees there because we have a gorgeous tree canopy in this neighborhood. And it's one of the things that we all love about it. So one side is a compromise. It's not great, but it's understandable. One side for Gary Street for sure makes sense. It's a dead end, but no sidewalks is just, it doesn't make sense on any neighborhood street anywhere in the city. Every street should have a sidewalk, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question for the registrant? Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else, Aiden?
We had one more registrant, James Curley, registered opposing, wishing to speak, but I don't believe they're here.
I don't see him either. Okay, thanks. So comments or questions for Jose and Aaron and Kevin? It's a lot. There's a lot here. And I'm just going to say I understand, generally speaking, Jose, that we're going with 1B for Maher, which is sidewalks on basically sidewalks on one side where there were options for both, with the exception of, I think, by the YMCA, you're going to have parking on sidewalks on both sides, correct? But generally speaking, it was sidewalks on one side and the traffic circle in terms of the various options. Is that correct?
There'd just be sidewalk on one side for pretty much all the options. And then the parking would be two-sided for near the YMCA.
Okay, so the parking would be two-sided, but there would still be sidewalk on one side.
Yes, and just on this block of Claire to Eleanor on Gary Street would be two-sided parking.
Thanks for that clarification. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks.
And sorry, Katya has her hand up. The people have had their opportunity to speak, so it's now up to the members of the commission at this point. So Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. Big project and more to come, as you described. A few clarification questions or questions just. Did you do any parking utilization studies in the area?
Yes, we did. Let's see. I have it on the side here. I will say that there wasn't much parking being used. Here if you can see this right here. Here we just have like on the stretch of like at the beginning of Cottage Grove Grove Road. On Maher, at the AM there was 2, and then the PM there was 0. This is just the weekday parking. There's just a lot of no parking here. On Gary Street, there's less than. And then on the weekends, it's kind of the similar thing. But I will say, after meeting the residents, there's, they see it differently. This is just one day. And so like keeping the parking there in a few spots is kind of like one of our things to do. They mentioned that here at the Horseshoe, there's like a bar there that fills up their parking. They have really nowhere to go here. And then along with Gary Street too, I think there's some caretakers that show up for those people in those homes and need someone to park. And so, yeah, kind of a long answer to your parking study if we did one.
No, appreciate that. I mean, this is helpful. I mean, what people say is one thing, what studies say is another thing. And so that's good to know, which I guess that leads me into the next piece. So you said all of these would be classified as a neighborhood yield street according to the Complete Green Streets Guide?
Essentially, yes, all of them. And then Park Court would be I think there's like a variation of the yield street because it's a court street and it has.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, so I guess I'm wondering, so first of all, why I'm asking about parking is that, and we've had this discussion in the context of other projects, the concept of the neighborhood yield street is if you have on-street parking, 2 cars can't pass each other, and therefore that slows down traffic, makes things safe. That, of course, only works if somebody's actually parking on the street. So if you have very low parking utilization and you design a neighborhood yield street with the street widths that I think are being proposed, that may just not work. And so we have to be very careful about that, and like in terms of what we are promising residents, and also, do we get the desired outcomes? And that leads me into the other question. I mean, it seems like you're squeezing out every foot that you can get for various purposes, which is like nicely done. I did look at the Complete Green Streets Guide, and it seems like the travel way width is like, what did I say, 16 typical and minimum 14. And that's edge of pavement. So I guess you add 2 foot of gutter on each side, and that's how you arrive at the cross sections that you arrive at.
I believe so. Yeah, I took a look at it earlier today as well. And then it was like 17 feet. But we do have like 22 feet curb face to face in some spots. But I was looking at that and it's like, if you have a neighborhood yield street, could you really have? I'm not trying to argue against it, but it's just seemed pretty small for the parking. But yes, that's what we're kind of aiming for, to provide just that one-sided parking. And if the guide allows to go even smaller, then we will definitely do that.
Okay, yeah, it seems like you can probably squeeze out another 2 feet by going to the minimum rather than to the typical, and the typical is also the maximum for the neighborhood yield street. And I mean, I guess the other thing, if you really, really are short pressed for space, is to do 1 foot gutters. I think there might be reasons not to do that, but yeah. And I'm not trying to maximize the parking that we can get here, but like in some of those cases where you're having a really hard time getting around the trees or with the intersection areas, maybe looking at the street widths and really tightening it up for safety as much as you can. And then the final piece, did you look at raised crosswalks at any of the areas? I mean, the one obviously if you have one-sided sidewalks, it makes somewhat less sense, but I guess the one at Cottage Grove, would that be a candidate for raising that intersection and keeping the sidewalk level?
I think maybe Aaron would be better to talk about it. I think we did kind of talk about it before, but
yeah, I think we did explore it. As you can see, we're showing only redoing that one corner because utility work doesn't require us to go farther into Cottage Grove. It would just be for the street work. The main reason that would make it difficult is on the, you can see on kind of that south west corner, there's a substantial retaining wall. Getting into grade changes at that sidewalk, trying to not impact that wall given this current design. So that was kind of the main thing that held us back there. But that was definitely something we looked at, and I know it's a good candidate because it's a side street off of a main arterial.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's newly rebuilt and all. I guess the other possible area to look at is near the park, where you said you want to maintain a lot of parking, but there's also lots of kids, and so I don't know if any of those, like maybe the one, yeah, I'm not sure where the path on Dempsey, that's already raised, right? So that's so maybe it doesn't make sense. Okay, and yeah, I guess I'm in favor of following our policy for installing sidewalks, and usually on both sides, but with good reasons, as we sometimes have here, doing it on one side. Thanks.
Thanks, Harold. Kaylee, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I heard you say that there are some places where there aren't existing trees that we are moving from an 8-foot terrace to a 5-foot terrace. And I guess I'm wondering if it's at all possible to maintain the wider terrace for the potential of future canopy trees rather than, precluding that by narrowing the terrace.
I don't know if I mentioned that, but I mean, there could be potential like terrace expansions where we could plant new trees, but for this kind of project, it's like not a high priority for it. So the priority is just keeping existing canopy. But if we could find some spots to like plant new trees at, I don't know, like Aaron, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Maximizing terrace space wherever possible, where there's not another impact, is always great and something we can take a closer look at as we get into the fine details. One thing I'll say is because there is so much large canopy out here, forestry wouldn't plant trees so close to existing large canopy. So even if we had a wider terrace, it might not be a plantable location due to existing adjacent trees. So we'll work with forestry on kind of where their priorities would be for new plantings and try and get as much terrace space as possible, as well as for any rain gardens that we could potentially fit in with this project.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kaylee. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Sam. I just have two comments. One is regarding the sidewalk on the dead end street. ADA does not require sidewalks on the dead end street. That's not in there. And I guess I don't know. You can have them, but it's not really necessary. The other comment is regarding, ask Aaron and Jose, did snow storage get into the discussion at all on any of these? That's to have the wider terraces is really an advantage for snow storage, where you're going to have sidewalk right up to the street. That snow, when it does snow, it's going to go on that sidewalk. It has no choice. The plow operator has no choice, and so that's going to be an issue for that resident that's going to have to shovel that. So, but I personally agree with having that. Accept the compromise of having one sidewalk on the sidewalk on one side, not on both. I certainly agree. Keeping the canopy, you guys did a great job of trying to preserve where you can the canopy, and that's very nice. So, thanks.
Yeah, I can just say it comes down to like we have to hug that terrace pretty hard for some of those trees to preserve them. And then where we can, we provide that 5-foot terrace space for that snow storage.
Is that all you had then, Bill?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, just in line with my concern about like if there's not enough on-street parking, the yield street doesn't work. I guess one thing to consider if you have specific blocks where your parking study or other factors lead you to believe that there's just not a lot of on-street parking. I know we don't usually do that, but like doing like basically the reverse parking pocket, like you have a bump out in the middle of the block so that you have the street width that you're going for, no matter whether there's a car parked there or not. I think Streets Division doesn't like that for snow clearing, but that is one way to achieve a yield street, even if people don't park on it. So maybe you can look into that.
Okay.
I don't see any other hands up right now. I just wanted to reinforce what Harold was saying. You all have heard me say this a lot. I live right off Moreland Road, and there's parking on both sides of Moreland Road and sidewalks only on one side in many places. And there's very little parking on a big stretch of Moreland Road, and the cars just fly down because the street's so wide, because there's places for parking and no cars parked. So Harold's right. You know, if you accommodate parking on one side and nobody parks there, the street's wider all the time, and it won't have the same impact. I do support the compromise of sidewalks on one side due to the significant loss of trees, and I think in this situation, sidewalks on one side works. I would also say that in my neighborhood, Ocean Road has cul-de-sacs at both ends, and the sidewalks go all the way down to the cul-de-sac. And I use those sidewalks all the time when I'm out walking with my dog in the neighborhood. So even if they might not be required for ADA purposes on dead-end streets, we have a dead-end street in our neighborhood Mission Circle, and there are sidewalks on both sides of that street. And again, they're well used by everybody walking. So at least having a sidewalk on one side, I think is something I would certainly support. Alder Okovich.
Yeah, thank you. Continuing the sidewalk discussion, are you not allowed to build to the end of the courtyard on Gary Street because that's WSDOT land, or did you just stop because there's no property owners to take care of that?
Yeah, that's primarily the reason we just stopped, because there's no homes on that end.
Okay. I do think, depending on the maintenance, I do think it still makes sense in some cases to go down there, especially because people talked about how you can see the beavers and the wildlife and the cranes. And so having a sidewalk for people to be able to access that still makes sense in some cases. Although I can understand in this case, it might be tough because there might not be people there to shovel and take care of the sidewalk.
Yeah, and just looking at the aerial photo now, the other issue might just be if we kind of push this sidewalk here, it'll kind of go through that line of trees as well.
Where does the sidewalk end again?
810 Gary Street's at the driveway. So if I kind of zoom on out, it's right here. Sorry, I feel like I should just get a snippet and draw it.
Okay.
And then Eleanor Street is right here.
I happen to be a big fan of sidewalks, even if they're just on one side myself, but I'm interested in what other folks think. And again, the attendees already had their opportunity to speak, so we're really not having a back and forth with the registrants. This is really an opportunity just for the commission members to speak right now. So other comments or questions? Jose, Aaron, Kevin, do you have the feedback that you need? Or do you have any clarifications that you'd like from anybody?
But I would just say this has been great feedback, and I think we do need a motion to approve this design.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't clear to me in the deck, and it was presented as review and feedback. But
I guess maybe I'll ask Chris Pedikowski if he's on, if he knows. he would know best what we need.
Chris, would you like a motion from TC on this?
If you guys feel the need to, otherwise, I think in general we got a lot of good feedback. We'll be following the CGS guide, so I think it's not 100% necessary. It is helpful in cases where we, if you feel like when we're doing stuff like one-sided sidewalk, that's kind of, I think, helpful for the board that you guys support that versus both sides stuff. So probably not 100% necessary, but would be helpful.
Okay, so it sounds like staff is looking for a motion to approve their recommended design, which Jose walked through, which generally speaking supports sidewalks on one side. Bill?
I'll make a motion for approval of the proposed cross-section as presented, which is sidewalk on one side.
Second.
Locations where it's proposed.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Alder Oakovich. So Bill, a motion is to approve the proposed design with sidewalks on one side. Does that summarize it okay?
That's correct.
Alder Oakovich, is that okay with you as well?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, discussion, Harold?
More questions, since we often don't do the review and feedback. We don't make a motion. So I think what I hear is what we're voting on is the one-sided sidewalks we're signing off on, even though usually we want two, but details of where exactly there's going to be one-sided parking, two-sided parkings, what the street widths are going to be, that's still going to be revised potentially based on our feedback. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Jose and Aaron?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Alder Oakovich.
I was gonna move to discussion if it's appropriate.
Okay. Additional discussion? Go ahead, Alder.
Okay. I just wanted to echo a lot of what other people said. In general, I think it's more important to prioritize sidewalks on both sides. And I think Harold's comments and Anne's comments about if nobody's parking there, parking protected, or trying to use parking as a traffic calming measure doesn't really work, is really important to think about. I do think, given just how stark the differences are between the one-sided and the two-sided, or the tree canopy removal in the one-sided versus two-sided cases are, it does make sense to do one side in this case. It doesn't make me feel good, but in general, I like to see sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure, but that's a lot of trees. It's a lot of trees that would be lost in this particular case. Other comments or discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve the proposed design with the sidewalks on one side. I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. Excuse me. I'm not seeing any hands, so the motion is carried. Okay. At this point, if there's no objection, I would like to move to our late item 10 on the TAP grant applications, and then we just come back to our normal end of the meeting updates from staff. So thanks to everybody for the discussion on Davidson, Park, Maher, and Gary, and we'll now move on, because I didn't see any objection, to the TAP grant application. So Kevin, are you taking that one?
I am.
Okay.
Good Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Apologies for the late addition to the agenda, particularly on what's turned out to be a long meeting, as the meetings that I arrive at seem to be so far. I'm hopeful that we'll be fairly brief tonight. I'm going to share my screen. This is an informational presentation. I will have a couple of questions for feedback for you, but I'm not asking for any action this evening as we go through things. So let me just share my screen real quick. Okay, so as you know, we regularly have the opportunity to apply to WSDOT through the Madison Area MPO for transportation alternative grants. This is how we fund large portions of particularly our off-street bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And so these come around pretty regularly. We are currently in an open application window with applications due end of next week or so. So I wanted to get before you just to give you a heads up on the 4 projects that we're proposing as applications, and then ask for some feedback on prioritization of those projects, as we do need to rank them in our applications. There we go. So as a quick reminder, WSDOT on these projects reimburses 80% of our project costs, so it's a pretty good return on our local dollars with the federal funds flowing through WSDOT. We have 4 different projects that I'll just quickly run through, talking a little bit about what the project is, why it's important in our network, and why we're looking at using TAP for each of these. So the first project is the Beltline Frontage Road Path. So we are currently down along the Beltline here on the south side of it, just east of Seminole Highway. There is currently an existing path that runs a little bit east of Seminole Highway, but then it ends, and the gap shown in red here has no sidewalk or bike path along it. There are bike lanes on the frontage road, but they are pretty stressful to use. And again, we don't have a pedestrian facility. So this is for a shared use path that would extend the current path to the east to Landmark Place, at which point there are sidewalks along the frontage road east of Landmark Place. This is a project that we applied for in the last round of TAP, and it was initially approved, but in the end, WSDOT did not pass as much money through to the MPO, so this project got dropped off of that one. So this is one that I feel should be a high priority for us. It's essentially resubmitting a project that has already been approved. It fills a gap where there is currently no sidewalk in an area of town that's currently pretty auto-oriented. The second project is an extension of the Garver Path. So here we're on the, I guess, kind of east side of town. We have Milwaukee Street along the bottom of the map here, running east-west. We've got Fair Oaks kind of running north-south here. We've got Highway 30 on the north side, and then Stoughton Road, US 51 on the east side. There's an existing path that is not currently well connected, the Marshview Path, that runs here from Corporate Drive over to Commercial Avenue. The great thing about the Marshview Path is that it goes underneath Highway 30. So this is a low stress crossing of Highway 30 in an area where all of the other crossings are pretty stressful for people to access. This current space is open space. There is new development coming here. This has been in the works for quite some time. And there's going to be new housing. Some of it may be mixed use along Milwaukee Street down in this area. As part of that, the developer will be building a few new shared use paths. These will be public paths, even though they're built by the developer. One along Milwaukee Street on the north side of the street, one running along Starkweather Creek up to kind of the edge of their current plat, and then another one that ties over to the east. What we're proposing for this project is extending that path along Starkweather Creek further through the open space here to connect to the Marshview Path. This will greatly expand the utility of that current underpass of Highway 30, allowing access from the neighborhoods north of Highway 30 to get down really via off-street path all the way down to Atwood Avenue at this point, and to the paths that run along Atwood Avenue. From there, you can head all the way into downtown on low-stress neighborhood streets or paths. Also helps provide some better access to the employment and retail opportunities that are present along Milwaukee Avenue. So that's what that one is, a short connection to kind of connect an existing path to a path that will be built likely in 26 to help you increase the utility of those paths. The next project is the Odana Road side path. This is a project that has been talked about off and on for a long time. So to place you here, we have Midvale Boulevard on the right side of the map running north-south. We've got Odana Road running east-west, kind of across the middle of the screen. And then we've got the belt line running diagonally across the bottom of the map. The Southwest Path cuts through this area. It's the green line shown here. Probably our busiest path in town, maybe competing with the John Nolan path, but quite popular. Lower traffic out at this end of the path, but a key multi-use pathway for people walking, biking, running, skating, all of those things. That path has a spur that comes off of it that runs through Odana Hills Park up to Odana Road. Just to the west of here, we also have a couple of other paths that pick up. There's a small side path along Whitney Way that runs under the belt line. It's not great, but it's there. The bigger piece is across the other side of Whitney Way, where there's a path that runs along the belt line currently to just west of Gammon Road. There's a gap currently near the Westtown Mall, but then a series of paths that have been built also using TAP money, the Westtown paths, which tie into a whole series of paths on the west side of town. Long term, there has long been plans to extend the Beltline path along the Beltline all the way over to the Southwest path. That would be an ideal project. It's kind of a direct connection. It doesn't really go out of the way. It uses some available right-of-way, but there is a lot of wetland along here. WSDOT has been involved in a long-term planning process for the Beltline that is slow-moving. I see this connection along the Beltline as still being a critical piece, but it's going to be a ways off before that happens. In the near term, what we would like to do is provide a side path along Odana Road, adjacent to the Odana Hills Golf Course, that connects to that spur off of the Southwest Path over to Wedgwood Way, a local neighborhood street on the west side of the golf course. From there, as a separate project, we would sign and mark a bike boulevard on local neighborhood streets. I'm not exactly sure if it would run on Coney Weston or on Millward, but it would come over here to Odana Lane, where you can connect into the side path along Whitney Way. This path, there are bike lanes on Odana Road now, but as a kind of wide, higher speed street, they're not particularly comfortable bike lanes for a wide group of users. There's also no sidewalk on the side of the street here. So what this would propose doing is moving in the curb line at this point into the parking lane, providing a shared use path in this area. And then the fourth project is an extension of the Autumn Ridge path. So again, we're back on the east side. This is, again, the Marshview path over here, but now we're on the other side of Stoughton Road. So a couple of things to point out on this end. This is the new Autumn Ridge overpass that just opened within the last, I don't know, I guess technically it opened around the beginning of the year over Highway 30, again, also built with TAP money, and the path that connects to it. This dashed green line along Stoughton Road is a path that is currently included in the Stoughton Road North plans that WSDOT has put together. So this is a path that ideally would be built with the Stoughton Road project that would come down. It would end here just south of Highway 30 in the current plans, because there's a dividing line right here between the Stoughton Road North project and the Stoughton Road South project. I would expect that hopefully that path would continue south from here, but those plans aren't quite as far along at this point. What we are proposing with this project is a connection from the new Autumn Ridge path and bridge running west from there to connect in with the Stoughton Road project. The other thing that I'd like to point out that this sets us up for down the line is in many of our long-term transportation plans, there's long been shown a bicycle and pedestrian bridge in this area over Stoughton Road. So this sets us up for a connection from the Autumn Ridge Path coming along the Highway 30 frontage over Stoughton Road to tie into the Marshview Path. So that could be something that in the future we're back before you again to talk about another TAP project, but that is the fourth project. What I would like some feedback on is how you would rank these projects. Again, we have to prioritize our applications as we submit them. I will note that the order I presented things in is the order that I would prioritize them in, and I can give a quick summary on that, but I am interested in hearing other people's feedback. I have the Beltline Frontage Road Path first, simply because we've previously applied for it and it was awarded, but then the funds were not available. That seems like a good one to hold forth as our first project. The Garver Path Extension is one that is going to connect into a new path that will be built by a developer in the next year or so, provides a key connection for some of the neighborhoods north of Highway 30, providing them better opportunities on an area of, on a side of town that's not particularly well served on the multimodal front. The Odana Road side path is third. I think it provides a key connection, a key low stress connection in an area where we don't currently have one. It's a good kind of midterm solution to that extending that Beltline path all the way to the Southwest path. I think that's going to take a while for that one to come to fruition. And finally, the Autumn Ridge Path Extension is last on my list, not because I don't think it's a great idea, but simply because in the near term, it won't connect to anything over here very well. This path along Stoughton Road North is not going to come to be for a number of years. You can connect into local streets using some paths through what's currently a property owned by American Family Insurance in this area. But for now, this one doesn't quite get to much of anything, which is why it ranks as my bottom project. With that, I'll wrap up, see what discussion people have, and if you have any questions that I can answer as well.
So comments or questions, Harold?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Exciting stuff. Autumn Ridge Path Extension, right? There's a bunch of privates, like the map that you showed, some of the streets that are on there are actually private. And therefore it really doesn't, I mean, you kind of have to trespass to make any use of the path to connect to anything useful before that connection to the Stoughton Road one is built, right?
That's correct. And let me see, are you seeing a map on your screen right now? I might be sharing.
No, we're still seeing your deck. We're still seeing your project prioritization.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay. So that is correct what Harold stated. So the new bridge over Highway 30 does not yet show on Google, but it is roughly in this area. So our path would start roughly around here, north of Highstead Park, would run along Highway 30, roughly along the right-of-way line. It is possible that we may end up using the area where this currently private path exists. We've had some initial discussions with American Family. They are currently looking to sell this property. There are a number of things up in the air, but it would make sense if we can to come in and connect to this path system. The path probably needs to be reconstructed in any case. It's fairly old, but Harold is correct. Right now, if you are able to connect into any of the streets over here, they are private from roughly this point kind of back. This street is an apartment complex drive street. This path is technically a private path on American Family's property, although I do see other people using it from time to time. So, that again all kind of feeds into why this one ranked at the bottom of my list currently.
Thanks. Odana seems like it's expensive. Like you already have the street, it's 0.4 miles, it's over $1 million. so expensive about it? And then also, is Odana slated for reconstruction anytime?
The biggest expense involves moving the curb. And anytime we shift curb, that gets pricey. It was before my time with the city, but I understand that in the past we have proposed a flex post separated bike lane in this same area on the street here, which was not well received by some, and it didn't move forward. I don't have the full backstory on that. But that one didn't move forward for that reason. So the primary expense is in moving the curb to be able to provide a shared use path, which then also provides for a pedestrian connection on that side of the street, not just a bicycle connection. It's possible that something lower impact could be done without fully shifting curbs. As far as reconstruction goes, Chris is on the line and perhaps can weigh in, but my impression is that street is in relatively good shape.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I don't think it's due for a reconstruction, I'd say at least in the next five years. Maybe a resurface at some point in the next 10 years, I would say. We did have a PIM here, and we did have a lower cost option with the flex. So this was kind of our next step. And once we started talking about moving the curbs and all the storm, and then possibly those islands we put in not too long ago, that adds to the cost.
And Yang has his hand up as well, Chris. Go ahead, Yang.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I want to echo Kevin and Chris, on the lower cost design that we looked at before. Than the parking protect bike lanes on the street. Also, that's because of the potential maintenance issues we may have for this area, for that facility. So, but doesn't mean that that option we cannot pursue that option. Anything improves the condition, we can look into it. But this is definitely our preference. Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, we get 80% paid for it. I mean, I think it fits well in the priority scale. Like, it wouldn't be my highest priority, and so yeah. Sorry, Garver extension. Can you pull that map up briefly, please? So Starkweather Park, that has like a gravel path through it right now. Is that going to be like? Is there going to be basically another line going through the park and creating yet another connection?
I am not. Is that that's here roughly?
Yeah, I mean that's at least that's what it looks like on satellite imagery, that there is a gravel path going through there north-south.
I have seen that as well. I don't know the official status of that path and if it's.
That's going to be redeveloped.
Yeah, the developer has these paths coming and ending here. I think these will eventually continue as essentially the southern portion of this whole area is going to get built out, with the kind of the area north of here staying as more open and green space.
Okay. I mean, either way, it's a great connection. I like that on the top of the list. That's all I have.
Okay, so Kevin, you want to put the priorities back up again? So right now, Kevin has them prioritized or ranked in this order. Does anybody disagree with that? Or have additional comments about the prioritization? Alder Okovich.
Yeah, thank you. I just have an additional comment on the prioritization. So, ranking the Beltline frontage over the Garver Path extension, can you explain again why you did that? Is it just because there's an existing bike lane and shoulder? Oh, there's no sidewalk. Never mind. That's probably the major reason.
That was the major one. The other primary reason driving it was, again, this was a project that was previously approved for us through this process. So it seemed kind of like a gimme almost. I will note, it's not yet clear how much funding is going to be available through the MPO for these projects, but during the last round, Madison was the only municipality to apply for funding, and I believe all of our projects were funded. I'm not saying that will occur this time, but it's likely that more than one or two would be funded coming out of this round.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Thanks. Robbie, go ahead.
Thanks. I'll keep this brief because I know it's late. I think the ranking is good. And the frontage road path desperately is needed because biking along that frontage road is, terrifying. And anybody who's not a confident bicyclist wouldn't attempt it. And there's, as Alder Okovich pointed out, there's really no sidewalk either. So I think the ranking is good. I hope we get more than one. And I think these are good projects. Thanks.
Thanks, Robbie. Anybody have any other comments? Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. Do you have what you need then? Kevin, Chris,
I
Yang,
do.
everybody?
Yes, thank you very much for everybody's input tonight. Glad to present these to you, and hopefully I'll be back telling you that we've been awarded them at some point. Appreciate it.
Yay! Please let us know. That would be
I
great.
will.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's go back to item 7, which is our crossover reports from other BCCs that you're on. Does anybody have anything to report tonight? Nobody? Okay. That one's easy. Announcements from the chair. Everybody should have gotten the news release that Christoph Spieler, I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I'll have to check on that. Was selected as Madison's new director of transportation. My understanding is that he goes to the Common Council on the 16th for confirmation, and I believe he starts on the 21st of July. So we'll look forward to meeting him and being involved with him. And that was all I had for announcements. Future agenda items. I just have one cleanup item in the TC handbook that I plan to put on the consent agenda. We have the planning division staff coming to give us updates on the Southwest area plan and the Southeast area plan on the 25th of June. And then Metro Transit has one other bus stop change that they'd like us to look at. Plus, we're going to hear from them. I requested an update on the Metro Transit driver assault incidents because we had another one. So I thought it would be good to hear back from them on that. And they're also going to provide an update on transit, transit equity for people with disabilities. And Rebecca is going to come and provide an update on the city's ongoing compliance with PROAG and ADA transition plan revitalization. And at the end of the meeting, we'll have our organizational meeting. So we'll need to select a chair and vice chair for the next upcoming year. We have to do that in June. So I put it at the end of the meeting because I figure if you select a new chair, then I'm ready and I can get everybody through this meeting, and then you can pass it on to somebody else if that's your choice. So seems to make more sense to me. Does anybody have any? We do have a number of other items that we continue to work toward figuring out how to either get you information and updates or bring it to TC. Does anybody have anything else that they would want to add as a future agenda item? Okay, well, we have this opportunity at every meeting, so now we need a motion to adjourn. Thanks for hanging with us this long meeting. Great discussion as usual, Harald.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we need a second. Somebody?
Second.
Okay, Alder Ogovich gave us this a second. And I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote because I think we're all tired and I want to go eat some supper. So thanks, everybody. Again, great participation, great discussion. See you next time.